This week's show goes in a lot of different directions. It gets a little spicy, it gets a little bizarre, it gets a little weird, and hopefully it gets your attention. This week we have Jake Latendresse, Bassmaster Videographer, right back from Lake Murray with lots of behind-the-scenes info from there. And as if that's not enough, I am joined by Mr. Fear My Heart, Carl Jocumsen, with a really cool initiative and some stuff he wants to get off his chest. As I said, this one gets spicy. Carl Jocumsen and Jake Latendresse joined me this week. Oh.
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and all my humpers. Happy hump day to each and every one of you. Welcome into the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. This is the 161st edition of the Mercer Podcast. And, you know, you guys think I have plans. You think that it's all set out. You know, this week we're going to talk about this. I'm a mess. And this episode proves just that. We have Jake Latendresse on, one of the best Jake takes we've ever done. Really funny, a lot of stuff we cover, a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on at the event. And then I have Carl Jocumsen on, and I was like, we'll just do 20 to 30 minutes real quick on a new initiative that he's got going. Well, he wanted to open up, and open up he does. We talk about a lot of things. Well, we basically try to fix every problem there is in professional bass fishing. We go over every single little controversy or little thing that got traffic this year on the Bassmaster Elite Series, and we both give our opinions on how to fix it. We may be totally wrong, but this show is totally long. And if you need to break it up in a couple of bits, that's fine. But I never cut off a good conversation to fit into some sort of box. And again, this week I did not. The 20-minute segment with Carl Jocumsen, much longer than that. I hope you enjoy it. Let's just jump right into this. This is going to be a fun one. Let's kick it off with Jake's take. The always enjoyable Jake Latendresse. Just in case anybody on earth ever thought of thinking that we do not love the fine folks that listen to this show, we literally, we're like, Jake's just back from blah, blah, blah. And it's normally that's the sentence you use, but it's been a day or two. Both of us literally just freaking walked in the door. You haven't even seen your children yet. You're picking them up in a little while, I assume. So, hey, thanks for doing this, Jake.
I literally just walked. I brought my backpack down here to pull my computer out to get this fired up. Literally just walked in the door.
Who does this? We're stupid. We're stupid.
We're dedicatedly stupid.
Yes. That better earn us a freaking like or something. I'm not asking this week. You better freaking give us some love. Okay?
That's right. You better bring it.
Because I didn't give any to my wife for you guys.
I didn't even say hi to my dog. I haven't even said hi to my dog yet.
Not even a bone.
Not even a bone.
And I wasn't talking about the dog.
Oh,
what a bizarre event, an awesome event. They always seem ridiculous. When it goes a day longer, it feels like a lot longer. Like, I know this sounds stupid to people, but like everybody yesterday's walking around like a zombie. Do you feel the same?
Oh, I was shot, dude. Because I did some extra work while I was there with Sego and Taku Ito. And so
you can say it like that, extra work. Extra work sounds like you're doing extra stuff for your employer. You did a little side hustle.
Okay, side hustling. Yeah, we were rolling the dice. And so, I worked every day. I'm assuming you did, and we all did. And even the days off, the anglers I talked to, even Taku was saying on his day off, he just laid around and slept, and it makes you lazy and it gets you away from your, the last day of practice, and it kind of pulls you away from your psyche.
Yeah. Me and Davey stayed right there, which was awesome.
Tell me about
it. No, and but we were all set on the day off, like the first day, the canceled day, the postponed day, whatever post canceled day, whatever
Post
we're referring to
canceled.
it as. That was a total typo on my
I
post.
know.
But it became a
Uh,
thing, and it kind of was a joke, but I digress. Um, but we're all set to go fishing, dude. I'm excited. Like the day's off. I mean, there's a storm coming, but it's nice, and we're gonna go to this private pond. And I mean, freaking Davy Height is the governor of South Carolina, so we're going somewhere good. And then Bowman called and was like, "We need you to do yeah, could you get on there the live and do talk about cicadas with Brandon Palnick for an hour and a half or whatever." So it screwed up our fishing trip. So we didn't get to do it. But it was a good tournament. I mean, domination by Patrick Walters. I mean, and not secret domination. Like he was just better than anybody in the entire tournament. Some odd things that happened. There was a sign, a flag that was floating around all week. I talked about it on
oh, I
stage
saw it.
that
Yeah.
said John Cox does not need
No, it
live
said,
scope. I
no, it
know.
said, it's not what it said.
Slow down.
Okay. Okay.
You're all hopped up, just got off the plane. I'm getting there. It said, I thought all week on stage I'd been saying it says John Cox does not need live scope. But it turns out that when I saw the sign, it says Big Cox does not need live scope. So every part of me wants to start calling him Big Cox when he weighs in.
And it was spelled COX.
Yeah. Big Cox.
The funny
Um,
thing about that flag was we parked in front of it on two different occasions. I did once with Lee and I did once with Brandon Cobb, and the wind was blowing. Whoever put it up should have pinned it, like stretched it out, pinned it against two trees because it was blowing the wrong way and you couldn't read it. So it's like you had to look in a mirror backwards to read the thing. But yeah, it was pretty funny.
the secret decoder. That was not
That's
the
right.
only sign. I don't know if I'm comfortable even showing these. I didn't even know if you saw them, but like a lot of anglers got them. I got into town and I found out that there was these stickers floating around from some dude. And if I was a better human, I'd know your name. He had a glorious gray beard, longer than mine, but he is obviously from the Bass Hole Lodge at Lake Sam Rayburn. Did you see these?
I
Dave Mercer for
did.
president.
Yeah,
They
Lisa
were on
Lisa
everybody's
Talmadge
freaking
showed me
boats.
that. I
It,
know. I
it,
want one. Did you get extra?
well, I got these two. I'll give you one of them. Which one do you want? The
Basshole.
square one or this round one?
The square one,
You're getting the
the
round one.
rectangle.
You're
Okay,
getting the
perfect.
round one.
I
See,
knew
you
you were gonna
outsmart.
do that. That's why I said that.
Well,
You
but
thought
I'm
you got
thankful
me, and
for
I
that.
got you.
But I don't want to be the president of anything, not even a bass club. Never mind a freaking
What
anything.
about America? We need a new president.
No part of me. No part. I'm aging. You know how old people look when they're the president or the prime minister or anything. I'm rapidly aging as Bassmaster MC. I don't need any more stress in my life. I mean, I just have to remember to when to bring the boom and the shakalaka.
Hey, those 3 o'clock a.m. wake ups and early flights home age me quick.
Yes, they do. They
Whew.
do. On the way home, I actually hung with WWE wrestler Robert Rhodes. He's now
Really?
retired. Now, yeah. I guess we know each other. I mean,
You
Canadian
mean
people know
from
each other.
previous? Oh,
Yeah, no,
previous.
we've met each other at different charity events, and believe it or not, when you're in the wrestling business and you live where I live, which is he lives like not far from me and a half hour away, we end up on the same flight every once in a while. So we were literally sitting right behind each other, and it was cool to see him. And I'm name dropping him just so I seem cool, really, right now. I mean, I run into other people, never name drop them, but this guy is a badass. So I did. It was pretty cool to hear his take on like wrestling's exploding now. Like it's freaking like
Really?
got
It's
a
making a huge comeback?
oh,
I
dude,
didn't.
it's bigger than maybe it's ever been. Like,
Wow.
but the cool thing was he said a lot of it, in his opinion, has to be do with the new. Well, actually, you know what? I was just thinking if I said stuff like that, he didn't say anything. Jake is what I'm saying. I was just thinking. Um, but wrestling's great right now.
Uh,
I just thought. I mean, we were having a real conversation, and I thought,
okay.
if I was saying stuff like this about Bass to some dude, and then he got on his podcast and started talking about it, I'd hate that dude. So
And
it was
here we
great.
are.
It was
Here
great
you
seeing
are.
him, the glorious one.
Man, I'm not a wrestling fan. I was when I was a kid, and growing up in West Tennessee, it was really big. I mean, we had like it was the WWF back then,
Yeah.
and they would come to literally our high school and set up a ring and sell tickets, and clowns would walk around the
Gosh, the
crowd.
best.
And that was back in the like Tojo Yamamoto, Kamala, like
Kamala, the
way,
Ugandan dragon,
yeah,
Ugandan giant. I know him very well.
really,
Stars.
yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know him personally. I just
But you
know who
know, you
Kamala is. I
remember
had
the
his
guy.
friggin' figure, dude. I am a wrestling geek. Like, just so you know, if the WWE ever calls,
You're in.
see you bass
You're out
fishing.
of bass.
It
You
will
would
be a.
actually do pretty well there.
Oh gosh, I would love to do that. And I wouldn't leave bass. I mean, I'd love to do both. In a perfect world, you'd be able to. But they've got this female announcer right now who's a total badass.
Really?
Oh, she's incredible. She like makes it super theatrical. She's insane, clearly, just like me. Like, why do I call Ed Lochran, who's a lawyer, the barrister? And if you notice when I say it, I'm like the barrister, Edward
You,
Lochran the third. Like he's a character, and he's
you
so
actually called
not
him that
like
in your interviews before when you went out, when you
yeah,
interviewed the top 10. Yeah.
the barrister. But it's cool. She puts Samantha Irvin, I believe her name is. I'm gonna look it up so I'm not sounding like an idiot. But she is a badass announcer. So
That's
my
awesome.
chance of getting a job there is probably
Slim to none.
less likely.
Do you
I
know
think
that Ed Lochran and I have a mutual friend? Have I ever told you that? He
no, I bet
grew
you're
up with
about
a
to though.
he grew up with a guy named Michael K, who was a bartender at the Town Pump, my bar in Fort Collins, Colorado for 10 years. And before I ever met Ed Lochran, he's actually been to the Town Pump, my bar.
Come on.
I'm telling you.
I wasn't even really paying attention. Samantha Irvin is her name, but
You're like,
that's
come
great.
on, you don't even know what I said.
Great story. There she is. There she is. WWE announcer.
Ooh,
Badass.
ooh.
She's
I
she's
didn't. I
engaged to
can
a
say that.
wrestler too. She's
Oh
engaged to a
well.
wrestler, so stand down. Ricochet. People
Stand
are turning
down.
this off at a rapid pace. Oh, but wrestling is bigger than it's ever been. Part of it's because The Rock, part of it's because it now has new ownership. You know, UFC, it's all under one.
Oh, Dana White owns
Yeah.
WWE. Really? I didn't know
Well,
that.
Dana White, no, the company that owns UFC owns WWE. So
Oh,
it's
I
all under
gotcha.
one bigger umbrella.
I
Um,
gotcha.
so yeah, that's so I'll work for them all and Bass. And then we'll never do podcasts, but we're doing one now. Um, let's talk about bass fishing,
Let's
shouldn't
do it.
we?
Let's do it. Lake Murray.
Lake Murray. It was one of the most popular venues last year. People were excited to get back there. We've been, I think, since 2012 since we've been there. I mean, I think the last
Mhm.
time we were there before last year was um that's when Casey Ashley won and Davey Height was second. It was the South Carolina Showdown. Giant crowds because both those dudes were in it. I remember that.
Right.
But after last year, people were excited to get there, but people were so excited. Like that last year, they were calling points aquariums and everything. This year, a little tougher, but still incredible weights. I think it's just a little tougher later in the year, and also it has been getting blistered.
Oh my goodness. The top water action, I thought
Oh,
uh, this year compared to last year, let me say this. I thought the fish bit better on top water than they did last year. And I may not have been with the right guys. I was with Brian New on day one last year. And then I think I was with Matt Robertson the rest of the time out last year. And it seemed like the top water bite, even when the fish were blowing up, they wouldn't eat anything. You couldn't make them
yeah,
eat anything. And then this year, they had about I don't know, an hour and a half to 2 hour window where it was insane. Every morning, no matter where you went, they parked up on a point and the top water bite was insane. That
Yeah.
was that's an impressive bite.
Yeah, and the really impressive thing is how fast you have to be. Like to
Oh my
it's
goodness.
not it's not hey they blew up. Let me cast over there. Like if your bait is not immediately and you saw it playing and out, if you could hammer it right away, you caught them. But
Hmm.
if you were just a little off,
Two
you did
seconds.
not.
You literally, and you know what? I was talking to Lee about and how impressed I was, and also just kind of took note of the fact that I don't know what's harder, skipping skipping a jig under vegetation, low hanging vegetation to the water
Okay.
at short distances, or bomb casting into a red solo cup at 110 feet. Like it's not easy for them to be as accurate as they want to be when those fish are blowing up way out there. You know what I'm saying? When they're bomb casting, because they could be 24 inches off on their cast and it's a no go. And then by
Yeah.
the time they reel it in and try to cast again, it's over.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. It's
It
incredible to
is.
watch. It You were with Brandon Cobb day one, which was a
Yeah.
big shocker, the way it went, because you would expect him to be a big time player in that event.
I mean, I was with Brian New last year, on day one,
Yeah,
and
but news new to there. Uh, you know what I mean? Like he lives right there, but everybody gives new like, oh, he gets to sleep in his home bed, but he'll let you know that he's new to it. I think he
sure.
expected to do a lot better this year. I mean, he said that. He said last year I just recently become a resident of the area, but
Hmm.
Cobb plays always on those blue back lakes, it seems.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think sometimes you're either on 2 to 4 pound fish or 3.5 to 5 and 6 pound fish with an occasional 6 or 7 mixed in there. And like Lee was saying a couple times during the 3 days I was with him, he's like he's on 2.5 pounders and he's not upgrading because everything's like 2.79 to 2.74, and he's literally either he's culling ounces or he's wasting his time weighing fish that are ounces apart. They look like cookie
Yeah.
cutters, and it's like you might as well just throw them back because you're not really gaining any ground. And I think, but the mentality would be, well, they're catching fish and they're biting. They're on a positive reaction right now. So it's hard for them to pack up and leave thinking, well, there's probably some 4 and 5 pounders in there too. And I
Yeah.
need to upgrade two of these fish. And then they end up, for the next 2 hours catching 2.5 to 2 and 3/4 pound bass, and they don't really upgrade. So it's a really tricky lake. And it's all about decisions. And if something's not happening the way you want it to on one point, you could go to the next point and literally hit the lottery, or you could go to the next point and spend 20 minutes there, go to the next point and end up running around until you're out of gas.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of running around on that lake if it's not happening.
Well, I mean, you look at areas, it's not most tournaments go down to the spot. Now it's not. Like in that, I mean, there were some key spots, obviously, but there was people who didn't make the top 50 that were fishing the exact same spot with people that made the top 10. It's when you hit it, it's all about timing.
I mean, I was with Brandon Cobb on day one, and then surprisingly, not where Lee started, but we went back when he left his spot. We went to a couple of other areas that Brandon Cobb was on day one, and Lee caught bigger fish and Brandon didn't. Who knows why or what? But I think sometimes, one of the unique things that Lee Livesey was doing was instead of casting to the point, he would park super shallow and fish it fish it like fishing upstairs. He was literally fishing up slope. And I think that had a lot to do with what was going on, and his boat wasn't blocking the herring from coming up out of deep water onto those spawning shoals. He was literally parked on top and waiting for those things to blow up, and it just seemed like it was a better strategy pulled down in in shallow water
So he fished he fished there every
every
day,
day,
basically,
every
right? Like it
day.
was one spot, bloom.
Yep. I mean, for at least till 11:30 or 12 every morning. I think he shared it with Derek Hudnall on day one a little bit, and then Derek Hudnall started there. And I'll tell you what else is key on that lake too is especially day one. And I think you'll agree with this. Drawing drawing a top 40 boat number going out on day one is pretty freaking key because with 102 boats out there, if you're like Brandon Cobb drew boat number 96 going out on day one. So we were essentially the last
Bad
little hand
rotation.
bad rotation. So he went to instead of going to his A and B spots, knowing there were going to be one, two, or three boats on those spots, he ends up going to his C and D spots, and there were people on those spots. So he ends up going to an F spot, if you will, his first location, knowing he's going to catch 10 or 12 pounds there just to get a limit in the boat and then start trying to fit into his regular rotation somewhere. And it's so difficult on that lake when you don't get a good boat draw. And then vice versa on day two, if you're boat number 4 going out on day one, you're going to be boat number 98 going out on day two. And all of a sudden you find yourself in the same sort of hole. And I kept thinking about the old cliche that we talk about. You can't win a tournament on day one, but you can lose a tournament on day one.
Heard that.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
No, I think that's key. I mean, I think it's pretty well known. I mean, it's as key as having a good number in a Florida sight fishing tournament. I mean, but it also to me shows why what Lee did and Patrick spent a lot of time on one point too. I mean,
He did.
it's it just shows to me, the event there. It's weird because it's changed from a run and gun body of water to like you can also set stakes and be like, this is my area. Like I'm sure at some point people stop pulling in. I mean, that you kind of own it. You've been there the whole time.
Yeah. So, one of Lee's sort of after late mid morning spots closer to the ramp, um, on day two, Brandon Lester was parked on the spot he wanted to get to, right? And so Lee would go to a secondary point or a point across the channel and fish that. And then he'd run by the other point to see if Brandon Lester was still there, and he's still pulled down in the same spot. So then he'd go to a different secondary point or a different point, moving from point to point in the same region, constantly spot checking to see if Brandon Lester was there. And, and that starts playing with their heads, thinking, okay, I'm just burning time right now,
Yeah.
knowing I'm not going to upgrade on these other points, but I don't want to leave because this is all I've got. And I really want to get on that point. And so then, you know, um, I think their relationships start to play a role. Well, he's going to stay on that point obviously for the rest of the day. So should I move in on him or should I just stay away from him? And one of the, courteous things that Lee had said was he said, I'm not going to move in on Brandon Lester because he came there on day one and I was already sitting there and he chose not to move in on me. So I'm going to give
Cool.
him the same amount of respect, in reciprocation. So there's a lot of that goes on. And other times they're like, well, I don't really care who's there. I'm going in
Okay,
there and
wait. Before you start
I'm
that,
not
I
saying
just
who.
wanted to point out that this is a bass fishing podcast and something nice happened between two anglers. Okay, now go ruin it
Yeah.
with what you were
Yeah.
saying.
The antithesis of drama. Um, and then, there's other times where someone, maybe it's a friend like, Kyle Patrick on that same point.
What an
And
idiot.
and then they they don't mind moving in on them. And in fact, there was that one incident and moment when Lee moved in on Kyle Patrick on the same exact point that Brandon Lester was sitting on
Oh, you
day.
see it? You see how the narrative sounds so different? Like everybody I've talked to thought that Kyle moved in on Lee just because Lee, you know, hadn't been moving much, so it just seemed that way. But Lee actually moved in on Kyle, but they were fishing fine together, right? Like they were
Yeah,
getting
they were.
along
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. It
side
was
by
a
side. Like you could have
I
touched
mean,
the
he
other
pulled
boat.
up to his boat and was casting the other way towards into the shallow water, which is where that school of fish were on day one. And he didn't
Yeah,
know about day two because he couldn't get in there because Brandon Lester was fishing. But as the pressure built on the fish, the boat started moving out on that point because they pushed the fish out into deeper water. And so he pulls into shallow and starts casting the other way, striking up like casual conversation. Hey man, how's it going? And Kyle's like, dude, pull up here, man. Just pull down right beside me. Go
they were
ahead.
right
You
beside.
can
Hardly
fish
enough
right here.
space in between the boats for somebody to fall in.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, uh, Lee's casting in front of his boat. Kyle is waiting on Lee's casting a Carolina rig, okay, with a crawler on it. Kyle Patrick is waiting with a fluke bait for the blowups to happen. And because, if you're casting a Carolina rig, as soon as you send it on a bomb cast, it's halfway there and the fish start blowing up.
Yeah.
And you can't, you either got to choose one or the other, right? And so Kyle's like waiting on the fish and there's nothing blowing up. And uh, Lee says to Kyle, he goes, because he had his live scope on, he goes, "Hey man, will you point your live scope out in front of my boat and see if there's any fish?" So he does. He goes, "No, they're out in front of my boat, but you got to cast at an angle." So Lee casts across the bow of Kyle Patrick's boat and catches a 2 3/4 inch or 2 3/4 pound bass, which Kyle needed, but Lee didn't. So Lee turns it loose on the other side of the boat and he goes, "Sorry, man, I'd give it to you, but I caught that fish." So yeah, that was a very casual, friendly encounter. And at one point, they're going back and forth, cutting up, cutting each other down or whatever. And I'm like noticing
It's a
Kyle
southern
starting
term, just so you know, cutting up.
cutting down,
Like
cutting
you
up.
don't ever hear that
That's a
in
southern term.
we be
No,
cutting up.
no.
Chirping. That's what
In the
you
north,
hear.
they say we're joking around.
That did not sound northern at all. That did
That's
not.
my
And
best.
and
Okay, you say it then.
and whatever he sounded like, we did not
What do
mean to
y'all say?
offend. We just chirping, chirping. You're a chirper.
Oh,
You be
chirping.
chirping. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Chirp, chirp like a bird.
Hmm.
Anyways, continue your story.
Yeah,
So
so
they're chirping.
Kyle, I don't know why. I had a two shot going with Kyle and Lee in the frame because they were both having conversation back and forth. And then Lee starts getting more serious and casting out to his left. So I pointed my camera that way, but I could see Kyle moving up on the bow of his boat. And he puts his foot, he's barefoot, he puts his foot up on the trolling motor bracket. And I guess he was just resting his foot there and it slips and his foot goes down on the cable, the trolling motor cable, and literally goes plunk right in the water. And the first thing Lee did was before he even saw it, he knew he fell in the water and he goes, "Yes, yes."
It was the best. It was the greatest reaction ever.
Uh,
And I've watched that clip. I don't know about the cable or whatever. To me, it looks like there's no reason for him to fall in. Like he's just like, I'm having a good day and I'm just going to step where there's no boat. And,
That
but I will give him credit. I mean, he impressive return. Like he got back in the boat very quick, very agile. The winner of the day, though, was Davey Height. Davey Height had the greatest line ever. We relived it on live because if you fall in the water on live, it's
oh
going to be
yeah,
around forever.
that's
And we're
going
going to
slow mo replay.
yeah, we're gonna relive it forever. And we were reliving it. And then Davey Height said he is literally a hole jumper.
I thought Zona coined it well too when he stepped on that cable and Zona goes, he's hanging on that cable like a fruit bat.
I didn't hear that. That's great.
Oh, but yeah, that was a highlight of the day. And
Yeah,
and Kyle he hit his chest when he tried to get back in the boat. And I think he was like he bent over and we thought he was laughing, but he actually kind of did bruises his torso, upper torso. So
yeah.
hope you're feeling better, Kyle. That was pretty
I
funny.
feel like he's that kind of person, though. Like I feel like he's the kind of spaz that hurts himself a lot, and
Probably
it's
so,
in
yeah.
weird times, and you just kind of laugh it off and act like you're not hurt. But then when you get in your truck, you're like, ah,
You know what else is funny about that moment? I think it was like 5 minutes before Kyle fell in the water. I'm hearing something in the woods on that point, and I turned around and I looked, and there's like a guy sneaking around in the bushes back there. And I'm thinking, well, that's pretty weird. And
Sago.
then this lady steps out of the bushes, and then a kid steps out of the bushes, and another kid steps out, and it looked kind of odd, really. And I go, I think that's Steve Kennedy. And it turned out to be Steve Kennedy.
Oh, the Kennedys.
It was the whole Kennedy clan. They were what do you call it? They were geo learning about nature. They were like homeschooling their kids and I think they called it geo something. I can't remember, but Julia sent me a text and because I was kind of making fun of them. But that was a comical scene there at that point on day
They're
that
an
was day
awesome
3.
family. They're an
Oh
awesome
yeah.
family,
Oh
and they do
yeah.
geo learn. And I'm scared of SJ though. His son fears me because he's always putting stuff, like literally put stuff in my pockets, frogs, turtles, always like
On what? He puts
in
it
my
on what?
pockets. Like I'll
Oh,
just be standing there talking to someone, and he'll, and then I'll reach in my pocket and be like, ah, the
oh, there's
turtle,
a copperhead.
frog, there's a
There's a
copperhead.
baby alligator.
Why is everything spinning?
They,
Um,
yeah, right. Don't lick the frog.
no, I
They
just
are
meant
they
I
are
think
an
if you get
awesome
bit by a
family.
snake, you probably feel stoned for a little while, don't you? Or does
I
it
don't
go
know,
straight
dude.
from a bite to ah?
Oh, I think that's what happens. I think the pain, yeah, I don't want to get bit by a poisonous snake. But they are an awesome family. They're always doing something adventurous. So
Yeah, yeah, they are. They're a great family, great people. So you had people falling in the water. You had people hiking through the jungle to come across you. Um, sounded bad. Um, what else happened? I'm going to
God,
ruin
I'm
this
trying.
with my immaturity.
I don't know, man. We spent a lot of time fishing. Want
We
to
saw
talk
the
about
north.
that?
We saw the
Oh,
Northern Lights.
I did
It was
not. I
really cool.
missed it. Was it two
Oh,
nights in a row or just one night?
well, there's a story about that. And maybe through the magic of, well, my wife, maybe we'll put some of those Northern Lights pictures on the screen right now. Um, they were, I mean, we were literally sitting around and I had heard, you know what I mean? My kids, especially my daughter's all about that stuff. Sarah's kind of about that. So we knew that was going to happen. But you think you're in South Carolina, there's no way I'm going to see it. Um, So we're sitting around, and then I see on Instagram a picture like of somebody. It was Eric Lopez saw
Yep.
them, and I'm like,
Yep.
Davey,
Yep.
the Northern Lights are happening here in South Carolina. We need to go outside. So then we went out to the deck, and it was just me and him, like a couple of weirdos staring at the sky. We took about 48 selfies because I kept telling Davey it'll never turn out. Like he's like, we need a selfie together with this. And I'm like, you're never going to be able to have us in focus and them in the Northern Lights. So we've got a lot of blurry pictures together. But we do have some cool pictures, and it was really, I mean, I've seen it here. I've seen it in the Arctic where it's
Yeah.
outer worldly. Like it looks like a
Fabulous.
friggin' Beatles video. Like it's like a
Yeah.
set, like Lucy in the
It's like
Sky
being
with
inside of a
diamonds.
lava lamp. Yeah.
Exactly. Um, but it was really cool. We stayed up way too late, like a couple of weirdos, and it was one of those moments in my life where I'm like, I'm a weirdo in the middle of the night, laying on a dock with Davey Height, the guy who won the Bassmaster Classic with bacon rind. I mean, 12-year-old version of me is like, yes. Um, But here's the funny part. So we come, in the morning we show up and we're like, look at all these pictures and all excited about it. And we hang with a lot of photographers. So photographers are like, oh, well, I want to shoot it. And one of those photographers was Andy Crawford. And we came up with these great ideas. I'm like, Andy, what you got to do is you got to get the trophy and you got to get a shot of the Northern Lights in the trophy. And
Oh
we're like,
man.
that'd be great. And then I went back to the cabin and I'm sitting there and Davey's boat is parked. And I'm like, Davey, leave your boat in tonight because it'll be a shot of the Yamaha and the Phoenix and this. So Andy stayed. Andy stayed. We were staying in a little two-bedroom cabin. It was wonderful, but it was just a small cabin, one bathroom in between it, which I find awkward at times, but it was fine with Davey. Um, you had to go like through our bedrooms to get to the bathroom. That's what made it
Yeah,
awkward. You know what I mean?
sure.
Like if you had anyone over, they're just all walking through your bedroom. Um, so Andy stayed on the couch that night. He said, "I'm staying." And he woke up 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock, and the Northern Lights. It was the day the lights died. There was nothing, so he got
Oh
nothing.
man.
But it
Really?
happened the next night that he
Ah.
didn't. So I just think the Northern Lights dislike Andy
I mean,
Crawford.
they were like people were I saw pictures posted of the Northern Lights there, like all the way down in Florida, as brilliant as
Yeah,
they were all the way up the coast. What was that? What caused that? Sun flares and electromagnetic uh
articulate and there's I don't
way
know,
over
Jake.
my pay
I
grade.
know I don't know how to explain it and sound somewhat intelligent. So here's a lesson class. Go Google what causes the Northern Lights.
There
And
you
and
go.
just by saying that, there will be the smart people in the comments. Well, you idiot. Do you not
Right.
understand that
This is how
um
this works.
yeah, I do know how it but I'm nobody
Too hard
wants
to
to hear me
explain when you're
explain that. Yeah, I'm
tired.
just not smart enough. I'm tired. I'm
I
jet
s-
lagged.
One time I saw them in Saskatchewan and they were all white. Like all
Yeah, a
it
lot
was
of times
everything.
they're white.
It
Like
was really
you don't get the
looked like
color a lot of times.
I thought it was a fog at first, but
Yeah,
then it was moving and I was like, dude, these are like Aurora Borealis in white.
they were. They were. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a last cast story you told me you were going to tell about Lee Livesey.
Yeah,
You have not told me that.
on day 4. And we literally we left his last spot. He said, "Man, it's time to go." So we're running back from his last spot. Oh, let me see, where was it? It was across the lake. And oh, I know it was where Mark Fraser had been fishing and Lee Livesey. Since no one was there on day 4, he went in there and upgraded all of his fish. Didn't have a huge bag, but he ends up with 19 pounds. And then with like 10 minutes left, we're run across the lake. We come into that narrow cut before you get to the main point and you come around to the ramp. And he had pulled up there on day 2 and day 3. He's like, man, this little point looks interesting to me. He's not seen anyone fishing on it. And it's kind of a secondary point. And it doesn't look like all the other points that people are fishing, but he had a sneaking suspicion there were fish on it. So like on day 2, he pulls up, and as soon as he pulls up, he pushes the bait fish in with his boat, and there's some blow ups out on the deep end of the point, and he starts casting. And I think he got bit, but he never caught a fish there. And he goes, dude, I know there's fish here. At some point in the tournament, this little point's gonna come into play because there's no pressure on it, right? And so day 3, he goes up there. There's no wind, no blow ups. He's throwing a Carolina rig. He's throwing a fluke around, not even a bite. And so again, with like 10 minutes left, he leaves his spot on day 4, goes across the lake, pulls up to this point, gets on the shallow end, and starts fishing it uphill from the shallow side. And literally, it was 2:57. We have to be in at 3 o'clock on day 4. 2:57. He's pulling down at 2:57. Of course, we're a minute and a half from the ramp, so he's
Wow.
got enough time for like 4 or 5 casts. And Lee, he does not give up. He goes way out of his way, like, to do something outside the box, especially on day 4, when he has nothing to lose. And he always, he fishes into the last second. So he's making a few casts, and literally at 2:58 and 30 seconds, no kidding, Dave, he freaking sets the hook. He's throwing a Carolina rig, and I didn't even have time to pull my camera out because I knew he wasn't going to be there very long. We were running short on time, so I'm filming this with my phone, and he catches a 4-pounder with at like 2:58 and 30 seconds, literally, like, throws his rod down, like, is searching. He grabs his scale to see which tagged fish is the smallest fish, and he's got the other fish, the 4-pounder, in his hand. He finds the fish he's going to cull. He throws it out of the boat, puts the other one in the well, shuts it down, pulls his belts up, locks his rods down, pulls his trolling motor up, gets in, puts his kill switch in, boom, off we go. We literally pulled up to the dock at 3 o'clock on the money, like
Wow.
2:59:59. I mean, he still had a minute to go, but he pulled up at the last second. And that fish, that 4-pounder, he culled a 274 with an almost 4-pounder. And that fish moved him up in the final standings from 7th place to 4th place. And the difference was $18,000 and $25,000. So that one fish on the very
Wow.
last cast of the day made him $7,000. So good job, Lee. Always fit.
Wow.
Every cast counts. And I mean, it was so exciting. And really, there was no live, no one saw it, but I did send Lee the clip. So I'm sure he's going to post it in the next few days. That was pretty cool.
Wow. That is cool when you can pull that off.
Yeah,
Um,
that rarely happens. It rarely. They people try it at every tournament, but it rarely happens like that.
Polnick is also like that. I mean, I ask everybody who does the check-ins, and I'm like, who is always the last? And they're like, it's always Polnick, almost always. Like, and he uses the seconds. So you have, if check-in's 3 o'clock, you have until 3
3:59.
and 59 seconds. It,
Right.
it has to switch over, but he
Right.
uses, like, he will use right up to, and a lot of times he might even be casting right there, like he's there, so he knows that he's in, type thing. And they're like, "Are you in?" He's like, "Nope, still casting." And then they count him. He counts himself down, I guess, or whatever. But
He did that on Champlain, and I paid the price for it. He
why?
still owes me a chiropractor visit
Well, what happened?
because we can't remember he won at
Uh
Champlain.
huh.
He literally pushed it, and he had like 24 pounds or whatever it was, and he was still casting up to the very last second. And then we had 3 and 4 footers coming across the big lake to the dock at Champlain, and he did not let off the throttle. And that's one of the most brutal boat rides I've ever been on, in terms of just bouncing around in the boat and coming back, having to limp back to the camera trailer.
Wow.
Yeah,
Everybody thinks Brandon's a nice guy.
not that day he wasn't.
Beat the piss out of poor Jake.
No commission on the win, nothing, man. No ice cream, nothing.
No, no. He didn't get ice cream again this week either. Did he? He didn't make the
Uh,
cut, did he? No, outside of the
I
cut.
don't think so. Yeah, I don't think he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. He's just outside of the classic cut. Dude, we're past the halfway point of the season now. It was day
Starting to
two
get
was the
nervous.
halfway point of the season, and it is this season is, and I know people are gonna say the rookies are 9 people. They're nine.
Right.
10 if you include Tim Doobie. And I love me
10%,
some Doobie
10%
time.
of the field.
Yeah. So but if you look at it is the most amount of mega powers that are out. Like, I'm talking like way down in the standings. And I'm smarter than, it would probably be super entertaining for the podcast. It would get more people to watch it if I would go here and I would start reading this list, and I would say, but I'm not going to do that because
We're not going to go there.
no, because you know what? I don't want, I mean, that's a shitty spot to be in you know what I mean? They don't want to be there.
We
And
don't want them to be there.
no. Um, but I'm not going to pile on. You know what I mean? Like it's real. What I mean is they're more sensitive this time, and I'm scared of the next 4 events because if you think craziness happened this season, it just seems that I mean it's not just fishing. The world is increasingly more
Crazy. Crazy.
controversial, negative, looking for the unpositive stuff in everything. But even when everyone's happy, they get ornery in the last 4 events. So there will be some. I mean,
It's coming down. I mean,
Swelter
it's
and
people.
Smith Lake.
I mean, there are people that have to. I mean, who was it? Maybe it was Cobb
Stop
that
it!
was
Don't
telling
even
me.
say a name.
Okay,
Okay,
that
fine. Say it. Whatever.
they have
He's a
to
dick. He'll say your name.
average top 30 for the rest of the
Who's that,
events to make
Jake?
the classic. I think Brandon Cobb said that to me. Is that right?
What? Yeah, but that's not that bad. I mean,
No, 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 no. I'm just
he can do
saying
that. He's
at
freaking Brandon Cobb.
this point in the season, that's when people really start looking at those AOI standings going, okay, man, they start doing the math,
Yeah.
because it's going to come down to the wire for a lot of people. So,
What's your
yeah,
take on the math? Would you, if you were an angler, that's well, you are, but if you were an Elite Series angler,
which
and
I'm not,
which you're not, but you hang around
clearly,
with a bunch of them,
clearly.
um, would you pay attention to the numbers? Like there's some that work them out. There's some that like Polnick, which he says he doesn't even look at it. Zona thinks he's a liar. I think he's being honest. I think he finds out sometimes, but I honestly don't think he looks at it because it doesn't matter, and he's that kind of
He's
locked
got
in
that's
dude.
yeah. He's got that type of mentality for sure. Like because I think he's the kind of guy that knows how to stay away from personal inner pressure, and that's how he fishes because he probably knows deep down inside he doesn't do well under his own pressure because
Mm-hmm.
he's his own worst critic, and that allows him to make decisions that he wouldn't normally make. So I think he does have that kind of mentality. If you answering your question, I probably would be that guy that does the math because I like to know where I stand, to know where I need to be. But I also think, I've asked this to a lot of anglers on different occasions about different strategies that they have, and and they don't. Some guys don't do the math. Let's say they have to catch such and such pounds on a daily basis to stay in the top 10 or whatever it is after day one. They don't do the math because they think that limits them mentally to that weight per
Yeah,
day
yeah. If you're
instead of
aiming
just
for a
fishing
top
through it.
50, you'll probably finish 55th. The
Exactly. Yeah.
old.
Or 52nd or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
I think it would be hard to do. I have no doubt that Polnick can do it. I mean, he used to cut like 12 pounds a week or something when he was a wrestler. When you know what I mean? Just think of
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
I mean, for a little dude like that to cut a bunch of weight like that every week, that requires an incredible amount of not just physical but mental
You bet.
focus. Of
I did that in boxing when I was young. Same deal.
course you did. Of course you did.
My son does it now.
How many pounds did you have to?
I mean, even under the circumstances where you don't have to cut 10 pounds, you still have to, if you want to stay a certain weight, then
Yeah,
you
you
have to
gotta.
maintain that weight. So
Yeah,
essentially, you're cutting pounds every day by not gaining any weight.
gotcha, gotcha. In the wrestling gig, they try to. I think that's they go to a lower weight class. You know what I mean? Same thing you
Gives
see in
you
the
an
UFC.
advantage. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that say that they shouldn't do that because they think it causes more concussions because you're sucking all the moisture out of your body, including your brain, and it becomes more
Dehydrated.
susceptible. But back
Yep.
to angling, I think if you can avoid it, it's the smartest thing to do because, dude, you none of it matters. I mean, your job every single day is to catch the 5 biggest bass in front of you. Now, it doesn't matter whether the day one you caught 20 pounds or you caught 2 pounds. Like, you can't, it's not a sport where you can lay off. And you know what I mean? And
Exactly.
you have, and any time in history that I've seen somebody lay off, I mean, especially the leaders, like you look at and I've said it a bunch of times before, so I'll say it again. And I don't see him that much, but I mean, I'm sure he would admit it. Edwin Evers was leading for Angler of the Year, and there was 2 events left. We were in Waddington, New York, and then we were on Lake St. Clair. Edwin Evers had him and Kevin were going down. It was a battle between the two of them, and Kevin got Kevin. It was supposed to be Edwin was supposed to have like it was supposed to be super tight. Here's what happened. Kevin and him were both in the top 10 going into day 3. Kevin had a horrible day 3. So it looked like we were going to Lake St. Clair and Edwin was going to be, they were going to be separated with but less than 15 points. Kevin had a horrible day and like bombed, like went way down. And all of a sudden, Edwin goes into the final event. He is 40-pound lead or 40-point lead. And so here's what happens when you start paying attention to those numbers. Every single time that we'd ever been to St. Clair, Edwin ran to Erie. Edwin had won in Erie out of Buffalo. I mean, that was always what he did. But with that 40-point lead, he stayed close. And he admitted that he fished very reserved. He tried to do the safe thing. And me and Overstreet recovered him. I remember, and it just, you saw the snowball starting to unravel. And Aaron Martins ended up winning that Angler of the Year, which was amazing. But that's what happens when you're too focused on the points. And I'm not pointing a finger. I'm just like, from my experience, the amount of times I've seen it, when you just are focused on those points. Because if Kevin catches him on day 3, and I've asked Edwin this, I'm like, if Kevin catches him on day 3 and you leave here within 15 points, do you ever think of fishing Lake St. Clair? And he's like, no.
Not even a thought. It's like,
so a big lead and balancing points can do that to you.
I think, the analogy that reminds me that it reminds me of is in football, like with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you got a 14 or 17 point lead and you start running the ball and getting away from what got you that
You
lead in
got
the
you there.
first place, they start letting the air out of the ball and all of a sudden it's 3 and out. The other team scores. No, don't panic. We still have a 10-point lead. There's only 4 minutes left in the game. They get a 3 and out. The other team scores a field goal, so they're still up by a touchdown. And all of a sudden, they try to pass, and the guy picks 6 on them and scores and wins the game, or something like that. It's just playing. I mean, Lee. That's funny that you bring that up because Lee went back to the same point that got him to day 4, top 10, 3 days in a row. He went back there and he caught, as I recall, he caught his 5 fish, but they were all, I think he had 14 pounds, 13 or 14 pounds when he left. And it was a lot slower. Like it was dying. It was a dying bite. And he talked about when he went to the second point, um, where he actually upgraded. I think all of his fish, or at least 4 of them, ended up with 19 pounds or 18 until he caught that 4-pounder. He kept looking back, going, "Man, I wish I would have. I thought about coming here to start the day. As soon as we pulled up, they were blowing up all over the point. There were hundreds of fish, underwater there." And he kept telling himself, "Man, I should have started here." But I think, instead of making a different kind of decision, which didn't really backfire on him because Patrick caught 26 pounds anyway. There wasn't anything he could do about it.
Yeah.
But in his own head, he thought, I'm not gonna let the arrow, I'm not gonna do anything different because this is what got me here. So he stuck to his game plan. And it kind of reminded me of that whole concept where he didn't want to make a new decision and do something different when he had a pattern going that made him some money and gained some AOI points. And I mean, even Lee I think he started out at Toledo Bend and Lake Fork. He didn't really do that well, as I recall, right? And then he had to play catch up. He was way down in that AOY standings after the first 2 tournaments, and now he picked it back up. Like I remember him saying, "Dude, I got to do something because we're only 2 events into the season, but I got to do something because I don't want to play catch up in the end." And now all of a sudden, he's had 3 good tournaments in a row, and he's sitting in the top 20 AOI. So he's feeling pretty comfortable, and you can tell just by his daily attitude that he feels more comfortable, than he did after his second tournament this year. You know what I mean?
This Alabama swing going to be big for everybody. And I'm just looking at the points. Trey McKinney's still leading. Jordan Lee in second place.
Why
But
isn't anyone talking about that? How come no
uh,
one's talking about Jordan Lee?
we've
You
talked
do,
about him
you
a
do,
lot. Oh yeah, I
you
mean, I think
do.
Jordan Lee wants nobody to talk about Jordan Lee. I
That's
think
what I want to
Jordan
make
Lee
sure.
is a pit viper right now, and he is very like the next 10 years for Jordan Lee. I mean, not like the first 10 years haven't been incredible, but I'm saying watch
Yeah,
like take this date in your head. In 10 years from now, look what that dude accomplishes.
I
But I
agree.
think he's real smart. Like I think he's just been silently. I mean, every time I bring it up, he's like, "There's no need to talk about it." Like he just wants to be. But he's 30 points back on Trey McKinney right now. He's got 448. Trey McKinney's got 478. So, but we going to Alabama, and that dude's going to catch him. And
No doubt.
clearly, it looks like Trey catches him everywhere we go. So I'm sure he'll be a player there. But it's going to be an exciting, angler of the year race. Like, and then you look in third, Chris Johnson; in fourth, Corey Johnson,
Yeah.
Cody Huff, Justin Hamner, Jacob Fouts. What a story that is. JT
Oh my
Tompkins,
goodness, what
Kyle
a great
Patrick,
story.
Wesley Gore. And then just outside of the top 10, you got Patrick Walters. But so many cool stories when you think about it.
There really are. Jacob Fouts is one of the most, I mean, I don't know who, a lot of people may not know his story. A lot of people do, but he was like, dude, he was like down and out
Well, I think he
last
still
year.
is.
Yeah, but
I
he's
mean,
turned. It's only one seat,
but he's
a
fishing
little.
his way out of it. Like
Oh
it
my
is
goodness,
amazing. Like he's catching them, making cuts everywhere. Um, Hopefully the
he's
sponsor
made
thing gets
all.
better for him, but it is already better because of the support he got from local people, and it's working for him, whatever way
He's
you
made
look
the
at it.
cut every tournament this year, and he's got 2 top 10s. Is that right?
Yeah, he's got two top tens, I know for sure. And
I,
he's,
I'm
I
I'm
mean, I don't
actually
know when he missed. I mean, he's in top 10 for Angler of the Year, so he has to be.
right.
Um,
I'm really happy for him.
yeah.
He was the first one to have a 22-inch screen on his boat for live scope.
Yeah, you say that a lot. I'm
I
still
know.
think you're trying to get a damn free
Hey,
MBC, what
I'll take
MBT.
NBT,
Oh wow.
NBT.
Next week
Nancy
he's showing
Bob,
up with the shirt.
Nancy Bob Taylor, NBT Marine. I need a hat. But he was the first one
Yeah, he
really, and I
was.
just, I just remember it from being with him on the St. Lawrence River, and then now it's like the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I thought was funny when Blockett was such a big supporter of him. Like when he came out with his video, Blockett's like, finally somebody can tell the truth. So there's part of Blockett that's like, this is wonderful. And then there's another part of him that's like, are you kidding me?
What are you doing?
You have a television on your boat.
This is BS.
We were this close to being best friends. Um, Funny Trey McKinney story from the weekend that um
He had
I
strep
started
throat.
talking. Yeah, I mean, he was real sick. So we'll all probably be real sick in a few days.
God, I hope
Um,
not.
I hope not too. But he was really sick and shut down sick. That kind of sick where
He
you're
came in
you can't
25
stay
minutes early
awake.
on day
You
one.
know you're a mess. So the day that it got canceled, postponed, whatever, um,
Post canceled.
post canceled. That's right. The day that it got post canceled, I'm driving back to our cabin. There's a little country gas station there, and I just noticed that Trey's boat and trailer are at the gas pump. So I'm, running around. We got to go do a live segment, whatever. And like an hour and a half later, I realize his trailer's still there. And, I kind of made a joke about, there'll be anglers saying this 19-year-old kid doesn't respect the pumps or what, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
turns out come to find out that what was actually going on is he was so sick that he had like gone and got gas or whatever. And he went back into his truck. And I don't know if he was like, texting or doing whatever. But next thing he knows, he wakes up like an hour and a half later.
He was
And he said, I
passed
hope,
out.
I hope
Yeah.
nobody wanted gas because he just drove away. Like, and I talked to the ladies that worked there because they were like, oh, he's our favorite. He's so kind. And I guess he stopped there every morning. And I'm like, do you realize what happened that day? And they're like, no, but he was here for quite some time.
He bought a lot of gas. Yeah,
Um,
he was really sick. Brandon Feen was in his boat and said he was
oh,
literally
and you
like,
traveled home with him. So you're
yeah,
done.
well, kind of. He
Gosh.
sat in the back of the plane. I sat in the front. But Brandon was with him, and he said he was really sick. He literally weighed
Brandon
in.
was with a lot of people.
Yeah. Yes, he was. But he checked in 20 or 25 minutes early on day one. He was so sick.
Well, no wonder people have a hard time with him. Look at him. He's friggin' super sick. Comes in 25 minutes early and still has 20 pounds. Like,
Did you see that? Did you see the shot that Brandon captured? Trey was casting that caffeine shad or whatever that fluke he was throwing, and he was skimming it under the surface, and it's coming, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this beautiful five
oh,
pounder
yeah.
comes up on its side and eats, and it was just epic, man. It was badass. Congratulations to Brandon on capturing that shot.
A lot of cool shots caught this
Lots,
weekend.
yeah, a lot of top water.
Top waters. I mean, I said it 10 times on live. It should be worth more points. I mean, it's what addicted everybody to fishing. And I think
I agree.
weirdly enough, some of this top water doesn't get its full due, like because it's not your classical, like it's super still and you're popping a bait. Like there's mayhem going on, and you're
Yeah.
top water, and you're like, "Where's the? Oh my, I got one!"
It's like
Like,
striper fishing or tuna fishing out on the ocean, and the birds, the birds tell the story and all that stuff. I mean, there's so many biological indicators out there, even when it's calm, out off of those points in the open pelagic water, you see the stripers, you know, coming, the blueback herring come up and they're popping, and then all of a sudden the stripers come in and they're slapping the water, 300 yards out there. And so all of a sudden, at least where we were, Lee would be like, watch this, here in about 3 or 4 minutes, those stripers are pushing the herring this way, and they're going to come into this point, and as soon as they get here, the bats are going to blow up. And sure enough, 2 or 3 minutes later, and there they go. It's a pretty cool pattern to watch happen because there's so much going on.
see, that's why I have you on this show, dude. Right there, that moment proved it. You would never hear the term biological indicators.
That comes from my wildlife and fisheries biology degree from Colorado State University.
Of course, it does.
There you go.
So many things we learn about you, Jake. But you got to go get your kids now. So go get your kids. I think that's everything.
I think we covered it. Congratulations to Patrick Walters.
Yes,
He
badass
sma-
win.
he freaking smashed it, dude. And he smashed it on community holes that everyone knows about.
Mhm.
And he freaking smashed it, dude. He is, and I'm not gonna, carry this on for another 30 minutes because I know we need to go. But Patrick Walters is quickly, starting to show that legendary status under his name with what he's doing. I'm telling you, the dude's freaking stud.
He's 57th in all-time earnings. He's in a three-way tie with Ike Ellie and Steve Kennedy to have the most century belts at three. Three of them have three. And I mean, he got close again this week. Not too close. I mean, he was within 7 pounds, but
Yeah.
he did a lot better than anybody. Like the tournament went exactly how most people predicted. If you take Patrick Walters out of the field, like the winning weight and everything, what second place was, it was exactly what everyone thought, but he decimated it. He has the biggest win margin. He has the all-time smallmouth record. Like if you read his stats, you're like, and dude's been here for 6 years.
I know.
Not even
I
6
know.
years. It's just the beginning of 6 years.
And I mean, not to mention his NPFL wins.
Yeah, he's got three
You
of
know,
those, and he's gonna try win another. He's already there. He's pre-fishing today. He's got one day of
right.
pre-fish, I guess, and there's a high likelihood that he can go back to back, win that tournament this week. Things are good for Patrick.
Congratulations, Patrick. Got a new baby, all that stuff, man. It's just life's good for him right now. So
Life is
good for
very
you.
good.
I really like Patrick too.
Yeah, he's a great dude. He's a
Great
great
guy.
dude. Um, Wonderful dude, wonderful tournament, and
His dad's always there supporting him.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's pretty. His whole family was there this time, obviously. What was
See
the
how
white?
weird the
What was
world is, though. Listen to this, and I got to say this. And I mean, I've never even talked to Patrick about this or his dad, but I do know this existed from talking to other college anglers. When Patrick was in college, his dad was around a lot at tournaments. You know what I mean? His dad was his parents are great parents. They're there.
They're like showing
They're
up.
able to be there, like John Cruz's parents that
Yeah,
are all, you know what I mean?
yeah.
They're at every event, and which is awesome. And nobody,
Mhm.
but in college, there were people who were like gave him a hard time. Maybe not to his face. Maybe it was all behind his back, but it's just stupid how the world is. Like people would give him a hard time because his parents are around. Yeah. Oh, what a loser with a functioning family.
Yeah,
It's
right, right. With a functional family. Yeah. How dysfunctional is that to say that?
well, it's just life though. Like it's like you're smart and that's good. But in grade school, people call you walking encyclopedia. I mean, I called my wife a walking encyclopedia when she was a child, and it scarred her. She hated hearing that. If I said to you, "This guest I'm going to bring on is a walking encyclopedia on whatever," you'd be like impressed. But it's just funny how at certain times of your life things are different.
But it's no different than if you're a football player or a baseball player and your parents show up to all your football games or your baseball
Uh
games.
huh.
It's the same damn thing, man.
Uh huh.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So
And you hear it.
whatever.
I mean, I hear Trey McKinney's mom's at all the he's 19 years old. He fell asleep at a gas pump. He weighed in day one with a scarf around his neck that I'm sure his mother put on. That's cool. You know what I mean? Like I
Oh,
mean,
it's
as
freaking
much
awesome.
as I mean, that's what I do love about him too. There's he gets wound up in the forward facing sonar thing and everything, and that becomes
Blah.
I mean, let the kid fish, let him do whatever. Here's one point in the forward facing sonar, but and remind me to go back to why Trey's an interesting 19-year-old compared to many 19-year-olds. But one point in the forward facing sonar thing, because I'm looking through the AOY standings, and if it's just all forward facing sonar, how come Kyoya is in like 50th? I think he is. I have to check that, but he's way down there.
He's had a
Um,
few. Yeah, he's had
he had a few
last
bad
few
ones, but if
tournaments.
if that's all it takes, he is the man when it comes to it.
Well, it wasn't like Trey was using it this time all the time, or Patrick. They're throwing top water and flukes, and you
Where's
know.
Kyoya? I'm gonna find out he's in like third. Hold on. Let me put on my glasses. Talk about something. Tell us about something interesting, Jake, while I check this out.
So after the tournament was over, me and Sego and Taku went out and were shooting some content for Shimano Japan.
Yeah, they fired me
And
a few years ago. No big deal.
sorry, shouldn't have said the name brand. Sorry, I didn't know that. I forgot.
Yeah, you
So
did.
anyway,
I
we're
got a
like,
ring of
okay,
service right back there. 25 years of service.
where is it? I can't
Where
see.
is it? I'll find it. I'm not showing it. It's got the freaking logo on it. They got enough.
Here, hold on, I'm gonna shrink. I'm gonna shrink
Okay.
your page.
Tell your story. I'm supposed to be distracted.
Yeah, so
Kyoya Pajita's 56th in Angler of the Year.
there you go.
And Joey Cifuentes is 102nd. So what's happening on the water
Wow.
is not all about forward facing sonar because those are
Wow.
two of the
The
not self
best.
professed, but agree. You talk to anglers.
Extremely good at it.
So, I mean, is forward facing sonar a big player this year? Yes. Will it be legal forever? I don't know. But will it change? I don't know. But I'm just saying there's more going on right now than just forward facing sonar.
Mhm.
Finish your story and then I'll finish why I said Trey's a different 19-year-old.
So we one of the few things we had left on our shot list that we had to get for the content was catching a nice
So
bass. What?
for the company to be
For
remain
the company that we're
for the
not
client.
talking about.
Refer to
For
them
the
as the
client.
client.
Okay, for the client. Um,
So dumb.
we had to go catch a bass, and the spot that Lee left before he catches the 4 pounder, I'm like, man, there's a lot of fish there, but they weren't biting. But there was a stump in the water that had like 5 or 6 4 to 5 pounders on it that Lee, he kept getting follow backs on his fluke as he would drag him through there. So I'm like, Taku, let's go to where Lee was. Let's just go to that spot. So we freaking leave the ramp and we haul ass over there. We've only got like an hour and a half before dark, and he pulls up and he pulls down. I tell him kind of what Lee was doing, and instead of doing that, he does what Taku wants to do. So he pulls down and gets out like a, a flipping hook and puts one of those Japanese organic origami worms on it or whatever it is,
Uh-huh.
and he's live scoping. And I go, there should be some 4 or 5 pounders right there. And literally within 5 minutes on his live scope, he catches a 5 pounder, like literally like the third cast. And we get our 5 pounder for the video. And yeah, the moral to the story is that
If
I'm not
you
sure what
if Jake's your camera guy, he's gonna sell your spots before you even
I
leave
know.
town. That
And
is the moral
hey,
to that
and the
story.
first thing I did was, and when we got back to the dock, was text Lee and told him what we did so that he wouldn't find out when he watched the
After you did
Shimano
it.
video. Yeah,
The client's freaking video, damn it.
the client's video. I thought we were going
Uh,
to end this 10 minutes ago.
we were. And then we got talking. Here's why Trey McKinney's what I do appreciate about him. So it's Mother's Day. I do Mercer in the morning, run around, and thank you all for watching it. It is awesome. Well, it's not awesome, but it's awesome how many of you guys watch. It's really not very good, but I thank you for watching. But I run around and I kind of get the anglers while they're still sleepy and whatever, and just ask them bizarre questions. So I come up to Trey and he's always a mess in the morning. Like that's when you see the real, that's when you see he's a 19-year-old. His hair's all
Yeah.
disheveled. But I came up to him and he looked better. And I'm like, you're feeling better today. And he's like, and his mother's right there. It's Mother's Day, right? He's like, my mama got me some medicine and I feel much better. And I'm like, well, what medicine? And he's like, what medicine, mama? She says a Z-Pack. And he's like, yeah, that stuff's good. But it's just, dude, every other 19-year-old on earth hides that. You know what I mean? Like they literally try to,
Why?
everybody has a kid that doesn't want to kiss them goodbye, hug them goodbye. You know what I mean? Like when you drop them
my
off at
son's
high
10 years
school and
old.
stuff.
He already don't want me to do that.
But Trey's like, my mama got me some medicine. I just thought it was cool. Speaking of kids, go get yours. And we thank you for tuning in. Always good stuff from Jake, and I thank him for fitting this in around a crazy week. And speaking of a crazy week, this show's about to get a whole lot crazier. Me and Carl talked about doing, 20, 30 minutes talking about something. We go a lot longer. But he talks about a lot of things that have been going on in the Bassmaster Elite Series. We may not solve any problem, but we try, and we give a lot of opinions on a lot of things. And before this starts, I just want to let you know that none of this is supposed to be offensive to anybody because all of the parties discussed within care and love this sport. And as long as any decisions that are made from that direction with care and love in control, then things will be good. And I have faith that things will be good. Things are good right now, but, well, I think we try to make them a little bit better. You let us know how this works out. The one and only Carl Jocumsen. Carl Jocumsen, you look, the setup is wonderful. People realize what we went through to make it happen. You were a blown out mess with lights, and now I look at my lighting and I need to fix it.
I just shake my head at your lighting. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is how you light a podcast set. I got the boat lit up. I've got the
Beautiful.
gym a little bit dark,
Yeah.
lit face. Perfect. Got my good side. This was actually a 30-second scramble with a light I found quickly.
Yeah, we're not even sure how it worked, but it works.
No, it works. It looks good. Now it's set. I've got my new podcast set ready to go.
It looks good. It explains your gym and your
Yep.
vehicle on the water, and
it's the man
that's
cave.
your dream behind you.
Yep, it's the dream cave. It's weird. It's like I've dreamt and thought about having something like this, and somehow I have it. It's crazy. It's pretty cool.
So I want to talk to you about something very cool that you're doing. But before we get into that, I mean, let's be honest. We literally were supposed to record. I mean, I'm trying to not be honest, but I'm going to be 100% honest. We were supposed to be recording
an hour ago.
Has it been that long? Like, it's been an hour and 15 minutes. We've talked about what we should talk about, and I never do that. But it's because the fishing industry is in a weird, not the fishing industry. I mean, I think the world, but the competitive fishing industry, it's a weird time. There's many different opinions and many different. Well, tell me where you're at with everything going on.
I have definitely I always do my best to see the positive side of everything. And even when I'm getting knocked down, I'm like, that I'm coming back, and whatever it is, I try and look at the positive side, especially like after a tournament, like I just had. I rest, recover, and then I'm like, okay, this is what I've got to do. I get back up and I go again. And I've never, dove into the negative stuff too much, but like, there's something weird with fishing now where I'm getting a similar feelings and I don't like it. And I'm like, it's just a little concerning. And I don't think it's anything too crazy that can right the ship, but I see it, and it's not cool when your competitors and the people that you look up to and the basis of the sport has a big negative feel around it. And the life and the news and in general, that has been the case, but fishing has always been that thing that we all escape. The real world realities come on, we get on the water and you take a deep breath and you're like, oh, I'm on the lake. And when that's getting carried with you onto the lake and onto the fans that want to watch fishing and onto the competitors and onto you and onto the commentators, it's affecting everyone. And I'm like, something's off and something's got to change. And I don't know, we have just spoke about it, and it's so hard. I didn't say this to you, but my philosophy on forward face and sonar was everybody's right and everybody's wrong. That's what I got from when I spoke. It doesn't matter who you speak to, they're right. When you speak to the rookies on forward face and sonar, they have put more time than anyone ever into that technology and into that technique. They understand it like the back of their hands. It's really, really difficult to decipher the different fish, how to fish for them, where they're at, all of these things. It's a skill, it's a technique. And they are correct in they got better at it than everyone else. So they're right. And it's not the be all end all. They don't jump in your boat. It's difficult. Then you talk to the other side, and they're right. It shows the fish, the depth in live time. Your lure going in front of their face, you can make multiple casts at them. You can hook one and miss it and continue to cast to it. You don't have to worry about seasonal patterns. You can just put your trolling motor down and find them. It's the most powerful fish catching technology ever created.
Yeah.
It's made it easier for younger guys to get into the sport and dominate. They don't have to put in the work. They're right too. They don't have to learn what most of the guys had to learn. So like, they're wrong in saying that you just put it down and you catch fish, and the rookies are wrong for saying it's still really hard. Yeah, it is, but it's the best technology ever created. It's made things a lot easier. That's why you can dominate. So which side do you take? But everybody's right and everybody's wrong in every sense of it. So how do you come up with a plan for that? And you have to take all of that out of the equation, everyone's competition, everyone's finish, everyone's opinion, and say, what is best for the bass? What's the best for the future? What's the best for the lakes? And what's the best thing for these kids coming up and learning the future of the sport? And that has to be the sole thing that you look at, nothing else. It has nothing to do with where the legends are finishing and where the rookies are finishing. It just has to be, is this good for the fish, the lakes, the sport, and what's going to happen in 10 years? And I think if we do that, we'll make the right decision if you really look in depth of how it's going. But it's you and me just had an hour and a half conversation. I feel like I understand. You help me understand more, and you understand where I'm coming from. But you sort of you keep going, okay, go back this way. And then you just keep hitting.
It's not like we came up with a solution and said, this is what they should do.
This just needs to be done, and everything would be fine. So it's a weird time, and we'll talk about the positive thing that we got going with the elites. But what's crazy is I did a post about what I'm doing with the Fear My Heart thing, and it's
nobody
the first.
Cares.
This is what I was going to say. It's the first time ever that I seen some spark from a positive thing like that. I can see it. It's the first time where I'm like, people are finally sick of the drama and the crap, and that actually hit them. And dude, I've always posted stuff, and I've helped. I know that people see my story, but it comes from me digging down and coming back and fighting and not giving up, and people like that. But just a general in-person positive post that highlights something, it just is dead. If you don't clickbait it, if you don't say the most controversial stuff, it's not going to go anywhere. And that post I posted with Caleb, it's the first time that I've gone, people want this now, and it's cool.
That's great to hear, because you're right. I mean, nobody gives a crap. Nobody cares. And it's not just fishing; it's everything. I mean, why do you think that every storm has a name now? Why do you think it's the first time this has ever happened in 100 years for everything? Everything is attention grabbing. The world's become that way. I mean, and it's not like it's a surprise. I mean, there was a whole bunch of educated writers and stuff that were like, you're going to give a voice to people 140 characters at a time, and they're not going to give you the facts. They're going to just feed you what they, you know what I mean? And that's, I fight it every single freaking week with this podcast. Do you know how many times that I sit around and I think of a title, and it's something that somebody said on the show? It is literally something they said, and I can't do it. I don't, and there's part of me that drives me, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just clickbait the crap out of this? Because that's what works. I mean,
that would have worked.
It's a weird time, but I feel like some of what you're feeling, some of what some people in this industry are feeling, is kind of exactly how the world is feeling. I mean, if you don't think, I mean, social media and everything, although there's so many benefits to it, there's a lot of negatives that come with that. And it's the constant feeding of negativity, the constant, you're wrong. In general, it's bad. But I'm glad that people liked your post.
Well, it's not just that. I got a lot of messages from it, and I got a lot of people saying that this is what we need. This is whatever you're highlighting, that's what people are going to see. And whatever, it's just this, it's that thing. You and me and certain people, you're in a fight for attention and getting people to to support you or follow you, and you're up against a monster, because the negativity is gonna it's gonna crush you every single time. So like you're constantly in a battle uphill, but like I feel like it's just the right thing to do. But like I'm so glad for people that do the podcast, that can handle it and are bringing things to light. Like I'm glad that is there, because some things need to be spoke about, and it needs to be put out there. So like I'm happy that that's there and it's getting spoken about. But that's not all you can speak about. There's a ton of stuff that is going on every single day that is positive, that will give people hope, and that will make people realize like the world isn't ending. There's a bunch of amazing people out there, and there's all of this really cool stuff happening, and we're just not highlighting it. None of it's getting shown because it doesn't sell. And so I think we all need to get in a meeting with the anglers, but Bassmaster is the leader. We're looking at them. We're looking at you guys at the pinnacle. And this is my dream. This is what I left my entire country for, my family, my friends, everything that I've ever loved. I left my life behind. I need Bassmaster to show me that I left all of that for a reason, that they are the pinnacle. They are the leaders. We are going to make the right decisions every single time, and also lead this sport into the direction that you're going to want to be in, and you're going to want to get kids into, and your daughter or your son, and you're going to be excited to do that. And it's not like that right now. So like, okay, something's got to change. We've got to do something and get everyone's enthusiasm back, get everyone excited about the sport, and know that when we go and compete, we're on a level playing field, and we're out there to fish and do what we love, and the reason that we got into this sport. And I just don't think it would take many decisions to just ride it right back onto that level. But right now it's just stale and sitting there, and we think, and the anglers think, this is how it's always going to be from now on. That's the part that scares people, I think. But it's not going to be like this forever. It's going to change. It's going to get better, or it's going to adjust. But right now it feels like, oh, this is how the sport's going to be from now on.
How is it stale? I mean, you said it's stale and it feels like this. And again, I'm not defending Bass at all. I'm just trying to find out what's going on, because when you say like, you know, is this what my kid's going to do? Well, more kids are doing it now than ever in history.
Yeah.
Like literally ever in history. There's more young competitors, not just on the elites. I'm talking about the amount of people fishing collegiate tournaments, high school tournaments, grade school tournaments. So competitive fishing is exploding from one side, but it sounds like you don't feel that.
Yeah, so that side is great, but are we leading them into the right thing, you know? And it's going to come back to forward face, and I know everyone's talking about that, but the different things, are they getting led into a sport that has a great future, that doesn't have the animosity and the things that are happening right now? Are we leading all of those people? Yeah, the participation is huge, but what does it look like in 10 years and 15 years? It doesn't matter if there's more people than ever. Are you going to be begging for a bite in 5 years, wondering what the lake's going to be like? Or is it going to be this amount of heat all the time from against rookies, from the older guys? Or is it going to be like somewhere that they're super excited to get into and fish, and know that they're going to get the respect from someone when they do well? Like, I feel for the rookies right now, because I know I was there, and if I got discredited and I did really well as a kid, I'd be like, this freaking sucks. And that's what's happening right now. And a couple of little decisions, and couple of little things, and that wouldn't have happened. You'd be like, because Brandon didn't get that heat that much because they knew he was just a fighter and he was doing, it was sort of like the rules were the same and he was just fighting through. And that's how you know something's got to change, because there's guys that have been dominant, like Brandon, that haven't got this heat before. And Brandon, it was like, is he ever going to not catch him? Like he's won and won and won. Why didn't he get that heat like what you're seeing now? And it's because the rules are always like flowing, because the things are changing. You went from 3 guys in the opens to 9, and it's always like something is gonna change it to be like, oh, now we have to fix that rule. And that's what happened this year. We just had a couple little things that if we had just got it in check, the guys wouldn't have had as much to be mad at. But I think there's just like 2 or 3 things that if you just fixed, we could just get back on the straight and narrow and heading in the right direction.
All right, let's fix them. Me and you, let's fix them right now. If we can control it, what needs fixing? Uh-oh, your lighting system shut down.
It's about to go flat. Hang on.
Oh boy, look, it was so good up until this point. Carl's got to fix his lighting. It was so good. I mean, we shouldn't have talked for an hour and 15 minutes, it turns out, without recording, because if you do, your laptop will go dead. Or what are you back?
I'm back. I think. Hang on.
But let's deal with all these topics one by one. If there's a feeling out there, I mean, and none of what we're going to say here is law. It's just opinions. Like you said at the beginning, everybody's right on both sides of the forward-facing sonar argument. But that doesn't. I mean, it has to go one way or another. But it's not just forward-facing sonar. So you said that if a few calls were made differently, let's start in chronological order. So what was the first thing this season that stood out to you?
The big one that most people don't know about, and this is what I hate for the rookies, is the way it's set out is that you weren't under the same rules with information until you made the Elite Series. So it just happened that the guys in the rookie had a couple months where legally they could gather information on a lake before they made the elites. The difference was from years past, and I had spoken to Bass like, this is for years. I'd say this isn't right. The guys that know they're in the elites, they're going to be able to get info because the schedules come out, but they're not officially in the elites. You need to fix that. And because the Centrals and the Easterns would be finished, it would just be 3 guys in the Northerns. And like back then when there's 3, you didn't know if you're going to make the elites until like you weighed in on the final day.
Yeah.
So it just didn't play. And the guys probably didn't see it as much, where this year with 9, there was probably 15 guys that knew they had a legitimate shot to get into the Elite Series. And then they weren't under our rule set. So they were allowed to get information, and information in this sport is the be all or end all. There's nothing that beats it. Forward facing sonar doesn't even touch it. If you can get the right info from a guy that's lived on that lake and he can give you the right deal, it's unstoppable. It's unbeatable. And it sucks for them because the guys that, just because that was in the rules, they're not getting the credit that they deserve because they're really good anglers. They've put so much work and time into, they want this worse than ever. And like, it's just a little bit like winning with forward facing sonar. That's the machines getting the credit, not the angler. So I hate that for anyone that wins with that too. But just that alone, in this day and age, in the 2024, at this higher sport, with this amount of money on the line, with our families and the money and your careers, that should never, ever have happened. And that needs to be fixed like now.
So, and again, I do not work in the tournament department. I just move the hole that makes the words. These are just but to me, the obvious answer is everybody's under the same rules. If you're fishing the EQs, if you sign up to be part of the EQs, I mean, we know who's trying to qualify and who's not. If you sign up to be part of that, you cannot receive any information once the schedule is announced. No different than Elite Series Angler. And if you don't make it, you didn't make it. It doesn't matter anyways. So
that's an easy fix.
Easy fix.
Yeah.
Bass not going to change it now. I mean, they've never, as far as I know, I don't think we ever change rules mid-season. I mean, it would be a rule change going into next year, and it would affect the guys qualifying into next year. Nobody's going to fight on that. Nobody in the elites is going to say, no, we need them to get information, and nobody qualifying, even if they want it, is going to go publicly and say, no. I need extra time to gather information. So
hold up.
On paper, that's an easy one to fix.
Yeah, we've fixed it.
Done.
We've fixed one.
Fixed. I wish I had a gavel. Okay. That was easy. Next.
Yep. What do you do with forward-facing sonar?
That's got to be the last one. Slow down.
Okay.
I mean, you can't just.
I went too far ahead.
You went too far ahead.
It was like when I weighed in and I was third, and I said I was doing my winning speech, and you're like, "There's still 3 people to weigh in." I was like, "Oh yeah, oops."
Yeah, that was.
The next thing is just getting the rules lined up in check, to where we know that gray area has no place in this sport. Gray area is bringing the tension to all of us, because some live in the gray area, and when you don't, and you live so far outside of it, it so hurts you, because, dude, like, a guy at a gas station be like, they're biting a spinnerbait, and I'm like, all right, I got to just burn all my spinnerbaits now. Like, some of us live on that side where that's nothing, and the other, there's some, and the gray area is where it's won or lost.
Yeah.
And I had last year on Lake Murray, I was second in Angler of the Year, I think, going into Lake Murray, and I caught 19 pounds on day one. My momentum, dude, was freaking unstoppable. Like, I'm like, dude, I can't make a bad decision. There's 30 minutes to go, and I'm going down this bank, and there's this bed, and there's a 6.5 pounder, like 5 feet from it, and a 1 pounder in the middle of it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so, like, I tuck into the shade all the things I've learned off Prosnick and guys watching Bassmaster. Like, I was hopeless at bed fishing. I've never been any good. And I put every trick in the book on this fish, and I was catching them on beds. And, dude, I got it from 5 feet off the bed to sitting right on the bed, flaring its gills. And, dude, my knees were clacking. And I'm like, I'm going to catch this fish. And my marshal's sort of like, you got to be back in 10 minutes. And I swim this swim bait over its head, a top hook, and I just get it real fast to it, and I kill it, and it just turns vertical and just inhales this 6-inch swim bait. And, dude, this fish was so smart. It was unbelievable. Freaking hook it, I get it, I fight it, I get it in, and I'm like, dude, now I'm probably leading. And the hook is in its lip, but when it went in, it hit it on the outside of the lip. And I knew, and I shut its mouth, and I'm like, I can see the entry point of where that hook went in. And my marshal's like, dude, it ate the bait. I watched it. And I'm like, all of my senses were like, I can't let this fish go. Like, I just did all of that work, and all of these amazing things are going to come from it. And so if I keep that fish, I'm leading AOY. I'm second in the tournament. I have a camera the next day. Dude, what would have come from that fish is
lots to be gained.
Unbelievable things for my family, for all my fans, for my sponsors, every single one. And my marshal said, it's good, dude. You caught it. And I said, dude, I gotta let it go. It's on the outside of the mouth. And I unhooked it and I let it go. And I was 24th in the tournament then, and just life just went on. And I'm like, it's just me telling people I let a 6-pounder go, and like, no one cares. This is where, like, just I want to make sure that Bassmaster protects that decision that I made there, that every single person is going to behold to that standard of integrity. And just right now, I just don't know if it is, but if it isn't, if it is, just be transparent with us and let us know, tell the story, make sure there's nothing up in the air that's to our imagination. Because when it's to our imagination, we're going to think the worst every time. And I'm not pointing at anyone. I hate this for Corey because he's got a little.
We're talking about a rule, not a person.
Yeah, we're not talking about Corey, but that thing, it dampened his win. I hate that for him, that people said something, and it could have been, you could have shown a full clip, shown what the lead up to that, and then told this is what happened and this is why it was legal. So it wasn't left up to the imagination of us and people. Like, you should get the full extent of your win when you win. And I think that with that, like when I look back and other things happen, I'm like, no one cared. The only reason I let that fish go was for me. That's the only reason I let it go. And Bass could do a better job maybe of when things happen like that. It was on video. You could highlight that and say, this is the standard that we hold for our anglers here at Bassmaster. This is what we expect. But that never gets shown. It's the win, the thing. It doesn't, it's all about whatever else it is. And I think we've got to bring that, know that like the integrity of the sport's been held to the highest level. So like, I feel comfortable that when I'm competing and putting $5,000 of my money up, that like I'm on the same level playing field as everyone else. It's bloody hard to do. And I don't envy their position. And I love Chris, Lisa. I think they all do a great job. But like when you break a rule, you're done. You're last, brother. I'm sorry. I hate that for you, man. I hate that. You didn't show the camera. You shouldn't have run that. You didn't read the rules. It's going to suck, but you're going to come last. You don't have fish in this. If you say to them, did you watch the meeting? And no.
Okay, yeah, but you're getting ahead to another rule. We got one rule at a time. There's no way. I'm sorry to rein you in, but I do want to deal with all of them, but I don't want it to get.
No, but
so is specifically the fish being hooked inside the mouth. What I've been told is so how the rule reads right now, and you can correct me. I don't have the rules in front of me, but I'm paraphrasing. Any fish that you are visually sight fishing has to be hooked inside the mouth. Corey took a lie detector and was asked if he was sight fishing the fish. He passed the lie detector, said he was not. So via the rules, how can somebody be penalized for something?
And
that being said, I mean, we've told the story a ton of times about Brandon Lester. I mean, he's your angler of the year 2 years ago when Paul Nick won it, because he caught an 8-pounder in the St. John's River that somehow sucked his bait in, but it went back out through their gills, which happens. I've been amazed how much I see it in underwater footage. Yeah, but that fish ate the bait, but it was hooked outside the mouth.
Is it hooked inside the mouth, but it went through the gill?
Oh, yeah, that was the opposite. Yeah, so he sucked it in through the grill, but it was hooked inside the mouth.
Inside the mouth, but it didn't go through. So this is how the rule reads, which makes it confusing. And this is here. We're going to fix it. We're about to fix it right now.
That's what we're doing.
The rule says, and I could get this wrong because I'm just thinking about it. It says a fish may not be intentionally foul hooked while at all. I think, or it might say while sight fishing, or it might just say a fish may not be intentionally foul hooked. And then it's like full stop. And then it says, while sight fishing, every fish must be
on a bed.
Yeah, on a bed must be hooked inside the mouth. So this is how that's kind of confusing, because this needs to be fixed, because I think I should have been able to keep my fish. Don't you reckon at Murray? I was fishing for the fish. It visually ate the bait. I just got so unlucky that it hit it on the outside of the mouth. Brandon, it's breathed it in. He hooked it inside the mouth. The fish obviously was trying to eat it or whatever, and he got unlucky. So so you shouldn't have to let go of fish that you just got unlucky on. Man, if it missed it by this much, like the fish ate the bait, you should be able to keep it. So I think it should be that just the intentionally snagging part, potentially. If you are sight fishing, at all for bass, you cannot intentionally snag the fish. And would that just clear it?
Yeah. But I think you're going to, I mean, right away it opens to the gray of forward facing sonar where people are like, are you trying to, like, I honestly think the whole snagging of a bass on a bed in an Elite Series event, when you're in contention, when you have a camera and you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's insanity. Like, why would I ever, 98% of its body is out of play. So 2% is in the mouth. So if I think I'm good enough, and trust me, I snagged some suckers growing up, dude. I am a freaking snagging expert. Okay. Like, we're not talking hundreds of suckers, we're talking thousands of suckers I have snagged. I'm willing to admit it. It's hard. You know what I mean? Like, if you're out in the middle of the lake, I mean, if you're just blatant cheater, you know what I mean? I mean, sure, you could snag a fish, get it in the boat, and say it was hooked in the mouth. But if you're trying to do it on camera, I don't think anyone would ever do that. But I think that what we are in danger of, and I'd like to hear your opinion as an angler, is the initial thought, and I'm sure there's people watching this, listening to this, that are thinking it right now. Well, why not just make it every single fish you catch needs to be hooked in the mouth?
Yeah.
And that is that's got nothing to do with forward facing sonar. It's got nothing to do with bed fishing. When you throw a jerk bait, some of those fish, I mean, what's to stop a fish?
Most of them.
A jerk bait, it gets hooked in the mouth and it also gets hooked in the chin, but the one in the mouth comes out and now it's a legal fish. Or a top water bait, when a fish, just pops it and gets it in the top of the head. Those are all. So that's where I think that one becomes difficult. I think straight up, like, you shouldn't be able to snag a fish clearly. I think me and Zona talked about it in last week's show. I mean, Zona straight up said, I think Corey should have called Lisa and dealt with that situation. But the problem is you're dealing with things, and you're feeling because if the rule says if you're not sight fishing that fish on a bed, only one person on earth knows. If he was looking at that fish, I mean, his brother bird dogged it and said, "There's a fish here." It's such a weird, but according to Bass rules, he did nothing wrong, and he passed a polygraph that proved that. So so then you're dealing with a situation where you let said fish go because you felt a certain way. Well, if somebody doesn't feel that they did anything wrong,
well,
and I'm not saying they did.
No, and in that situation, I just feel for Corey, because if he did everything right, which he did, obviously it should have just been explained better to all of us. So because if you just see the clip where he's looking and there's a bed and then he catches one and it's on the outside of the mouth, it just looks bad from a visual perspective. But if you explain it properly, then it wouldn't have probably got the attention or the heat. But and this is where I want the rules to be fixed. I don't know if we can fix them right here, but in that situation,
we're doing
if you were just solely bed fishing and sight fishing, and maybe the rule, just you're going to have to deal with the unlucky ones. Say what Corey, in this situation, Corey would have had to let that go. If you're sight fishing for fish on beds, they have to be caught inside the mouth, no matter what. So that means perspective fishing, like the forward face and sonar thing, snagging and all that. I just don't, that's a 1 in a million. I've talked to guys, they're just like, dude, if you can do it, good luck. But when you're seeing them on that perspective mode and they're on a bed and they're on a bed, I think they should just have to be hooked inside the mouth. And then if you get unlucky and they're on the outside of the mouth, you got to bloody let them go, and it sucks.
Yeah.
So you either do that, or so there's going to be two rules. It's either, if you know you're fishing for bedded fish, they have to be inside the mouth. or you cannot intentionally snag a bedding fish, and full stop. Like, I think they're the two rules right there.
Yeah. I think that's pretty simple, straightforward.
But it sucks that, like, yeah, for my fish, I'm like, damn, that's just unlucky.
Still screwed.
Like, yeah, like, no, yeah, I would be screwed on that. No, I would be able to keep it. I would have been able to keep that fish if it was, I didn't intentionally snag the fish. So I would have got it in. It's on the outside of the lip, but the fish ate the bait. You know
But
what
isn't
I mean?
inserting the word intent, doesn't that make it gray?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
That's
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, because I mean, I don't know your intent. I don't know your intent on anything. You can tell me I really just feel this way, but I don't truly know your intent.
Yeah.
But I listen, I think that as the world continues to evolve and change, I think that one area that Bass is getting better at, and they should continue to get better at, is that kind of communication. You know, because I mean, they've never, like, it's always been that way. So and so got DQ'd. Like, you don't know why. You don't, you know what I mean? But it's, and I think at one time that was fine. But now we live in a time where before a weigh-in's over, there's going to be a dude making TikToks about you and crucifying you.
And you don't, you can't defend yourself.
Yeah. And it's real easy to, you know, so rightfully, wrongfully, so that situation, but that's going to be something Bass is going to have to deal with moving forward, because that's how the world is. I mean, people,
it's going to have to be put out there, and it's, man, I don't envy their job, because it's so hard. But maybe you need like a panel, because a good thing that I thought, like, there's a huge difference between like someone passing me in a no weight to get in front of me to intentionally get to a 10-pounder, and I'm like, dude, you can't idle quicker than me, you can't stay on pad through the no weight to get in front of me. So if he does that, you might be DQ'd, you might be whatever happens. But like, if I'm running in some backwater in the Sabine and I don't know where I am, and I'm just trying to get to a spot, and someone's like, he ran that no wake, like, that's not a DQable. Like, I wasn't trying to run it to get an advantage. So like, this is where the whole situation of gray area sort of starts. It's like, and dude, your intent is everything. I know you said that, but like, that has to be on like the test or whatever. Like, what was your intent? Was your intent to get information and gain an advantage? Was your intent to snag that fish? Was your intent to just catch it? Was your intent to run that to gain an advantage, to beat people there? Or was your intent just you didn't know? You know, so that's everything, really. Your intent is everything, when that should show up, I guess, if you ask the question. So that, that's, I think.
So how do we fix that? Like, I'm not sure that your rule fixes it. Like, I think it's just another version of what we have. You know what I mean? Like, you cannot,
it's the same,
knowingly snag a fish when bed fishing. You cannot intentionally snag. So are you saying it's okay to snag them if you did it by accident?
Yeah, so
there's
that's
a lot of people be making accidents all of a sudden.
That's what you're saying, aren't you? You're saying, well, it was an accident. Yeah.
If I plow through a crankbait, you know what I mean, with big treble hooks through a bed repeatedly, I might accidentally catch one, but I was never trying. Like, that's
So the fix is, if you are fishing for bedding fish, no matter what, visually or on your graph, whatever,
electronically or visually,
they have to be hooked inside the mouth. That's fixed.
Okay.
So that fixes it. All right, we got that one.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And honestly, I don't know that
you're going to get unlucky sometimes. Like what happened, you're going to just, okay, that sucks. I could have waited a bit longer. I shouldn't have used that lure with the treble on it. Like, that's what I kept thinking. Like, dude, that one that I caught, it was my fault. I had a quad on the top of a top hook, and when it sucked it in, it hit it like that. And I'm like, I was going to catch it. It was ready to go. I should have fished it. Like after that, I should have fished a Texas rig and got on it and got it to eat it, but I had an exposed hook and it hit it on the side of the face. I'm like, I didn't blame anyone. I blamed me. I said, that was a dumb move. I used that bait to get it in there, and then I used it for it to eat it, and I should never have done that. I'm like, dude, I rushed it. I was getting impatient, and I tried to catch it. So, like, a lot of the time, it is your fault. You got to use a different, like, it will, if you know it's got to be inside the mouth, you won't use an open hook.
Yeah, and sometimes you just get screwed by it. I mean, look, never mind a bass rule. Look at Steve Kennedy, in California.
Yeah.
You know, he set the record and everything, but like he let multiple 10, 9, 8 pounders, like multiple ones go. He could have decimated the record even more.
Yeah.
And maybe still hold that record to this day if he could have kept those fish, but rules are rules. I think there's a lot of negative with every fish gets hooked inside the mouth, but I just don't know that there's any way they can do it any other way. I mean, if you can visually see a fish anyway, you can't have it hooked anywhere but in the mouth. I just think that because it's just gonna, I mean, there's no other way to, like, as much as it sucks that some guys will get screwed for being honest.
Yeah.
You want to get rid of gray.
Yeah.
There's only one way to get rid of gray.
Yep.
And that's it. Okay, so we've got 2 rules down, right?
I think we've done pretty good on them. I'm happy with them.
I think we've done okay. We're more effective when we're recording than we are when we're just talking.
And we went around and round.
What else? What else has happened that we need to deal with?
So what's everyone mad about?
Do you want me to give you them and you tell me if they're mad about them or not?
Yeah.
All right.
Go through the list.
Trey McKinney fishing in locks.
Yep, that should have been, that should have been up to the tournament directors to kind of like express that a little bit better. I don't think it was Trey's fault at all. I think we, it sucked because I think the story is like Drew was in there. He opened the door. They blew up. He said, "Can I fish in here?" And the lockman said, "Absolutely not. You can't fish." And he said,
the same lock?
He went, yeah, same one. And it was a different lock guy, but the different lock guy came and you can fish it. So like, Trey did nothing wrong. If he got permission from there was no signs. Directors, there's no signs, and you can fish in there. But like, that's going to be one of those ones where, all right, we've got a rule now. You're not allowed to fish in any locks, because I could see it where I was like, imagine if 10 of us found it and 10 of us tried to like fish in that lock. It would just be a mess. Like that should have been a rule from the start. So we can let's fix that one right now.
Yeah, just you can't fish in locks.
Fishing in locks.
No, it's fixed. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's confusion around that because a lot of people will. And trust me, the only reason I know about some of this stuff is because I've obviously heard it from you guys, from everybody, but people will compare it to a core lock. Well, a core lock, you know what I mean? Like in the Tennessee River, that is run by the Corps. That we are secondary, but these locks in Florida, I mean, are owned by construction companies, are owned by a lot of different private things. But I think that's how, we want to get rid of gray. You can't fish in locks anymore.
Yeah. This is what I don't like, and this keeps happening, and I'm sure it's always going to happen. But I don't like when like I think you can't fish in there, or I think you can't do that, but someone else thinks you can, and then they're allowed to do it. Like that's that gray area where I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were allowed to do that. Like that should have been.
But why did you think you couldn't?
I've just always thought like there's no way you can turn around and block traffic in there and you know what I mean? Like imagine if 10 of us, 15 of us all found them and we all just parked at the front, the guy would be like, get out of the way. And it's got, and then, the thing has got to stop of like, one guy might let you fish there. That's the thing I think happened in Louisiana. Like one guy let him in the private area, and the same guy's like, no, you can't come in here. Like you can't, and they stopped that by saying like you can't go into any private waters or whatever, because that happened a few times, I think, down in the Sabine where someone could let you fish their dock and, or their little private like marina, and then like you go in there and they're like, no, you can't come in here. But so I
And
think
what makes Louisiana different is the fact that you can own water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what makes it stand
That's
out
what
from
made
all
it
the other
happen.
states. Like you literally can be like, yeah, see this lake? None of you are allowed in here except for my buddy, this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree with that. I think that the lock situation with Trey, he didn't break any rules. He broke rules that people thought. A lot of anglers thought you're not allowed to, but in that situation, there's no saying that you're not allowed to. But I think ultimately, if we're getting ready gray, you're not allowed to fish locks anymore. But I think that I equate that rule very similar to a lot of rules that come along. Like it's not a rule
until it
it gets broken. Every rule in the book. I mean, if there wasn't for Dick Garlock, who decided to go scuba diving in the Thousand Islands, nobody ever thought we should put a rule in that said you can't scuba dive. I mean, but then some dude did it. You know what I mean? Same thing
that's
with drones,
what happens
with
a lot.
everything. Like every single rule in the Bassmaster rule sheet. I mean, Tripp would never admit them all to me, but at times he'd be like, yeah, well, that rule was so-and-so's rule. Like
there's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, some people have more than others.
Yeah, we know that for sure. And I feel like for Trey, like I think that's one where Bass could have said, and because I don't know the story, I don't know, I haven't asked anyone, and they could have said, hey, this was our screw up, and this is where this isn't on Trey. Trey asked us, and we said you could fish in there. So we just don't to take the heat off Trey. If he didn't do anything wrong, like there shouldn't be any heat on him. It's got to be come back the other way, like just to protect him a little bit too.
I know I work for Bass, and I know I'm going to say this, and right away people are going to be like, well, he's just saying that because he works for Bass. I swear to you, I'm not. But it's like intent. You don't know. So, but to play devil's advocate, what should be thrown on Bass? Like he called and asked, can I fish the locks?
Yeah.
Is there any signs? Are you allowed? Have you asked? Yes. They said yes, and there's no signs. So there's nowhere in our rules that says what he did was illegal.
Yeah.
What he did is think of something that nobody had thought of.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to being on Tennessee River where you obviously can't fish in the locks. It's
Brandon had a good one a few years ago because I sort of said something that happened similar to that. And I said they have to tell everyone when someone asks, and this will you'll have a good opinion on this. So like say Trey asked Bass and said, can I fish in there? And they said, yeah, is there any signs? Do you think Bass should have said, hey, everyone, you're allowed to fish that lock? So we all knew, or is Trey rewarded for like finding something sneaky that no one else thought of because you can't expose his little deal that he found. You know what I mean? So
if I found out 10 years ago that the Gussie and the Johnsons were catching them, I mean, I actually did find out about it, but shows how bad I am at angling. I never took advantage of it. But if you were the first guy to find out that marabou makes smallmouth go nuts, like, do we need to?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys benefit from that little sneaky bit of information.
Yeah.
Every day, whether it be a bait, an approach, like everything that happens. And I mean, somebody was the first dude who figured out how to catch them on forward-facing sonar. I mean, that's where I think it's weird. Like, I think if Bass didn't care and Bass just wanted to remove any opportunity that they would take the blame, that's the easiest way to do it. Yeah, so-and-so asked about this and we cleared it. But I don't know if as a competitor, if I feel right about that. Like, I mean, Brandon won a tournament running all the way out to Lake Ontario.
That's what he said. Like, they weren't thinking of that. He doesn't want Bass telling everyone, hey, you can run to the islands out there. And they're like, real? Oh, okay. So like, but I think if it skirts the ruling line, is this a rule? I think Bass should say, hey, because they do it. They say, hey, hey, everyone, we're seeing people run this area. You're not allowed to run that. Or they'll put a mass text out. And I think if someone's like sort of working in that around the rule, just like in around where like, is this allowed or not? Then maybe they need to tell everyone.
Okay. But I still think it goes back to what rules he's skirting around. Like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, because like what? Yeah, that's one of those things where like I didn't know that you. So it's hard because I didn't think you're allowed to fish that, but you were. So why did I think that you're not allowed to fish that? I've been through that lock 150 times, like back and forward. Like I didn't think you're allowed to fish in there, but that's probably my bad. Like I should have done more research, and like it's crazy that like you got to think outside the box that they were in there, and he's seen them blowing up and like they're in here, and that's what happens to all of us at somewhere where that makes you clue you in and find a spot. But I guess Bass has probably got to look at it when Trey rings and say, is this going to be weird? That's a hard one. That one's just tough, but I think, yeah, you can't have 10 of us fishing that lock. So that has to be a rule.
No.
Like you can't have 10 people pulling up at the front blocking a lock. So,
and the moment it becomes a deal, it gets shut down. You know what I mean? Like, and not by Bass, but what I mean is if, like, I've heard people, and again, this is just hearsay. I don't know if any of this is fact, but I've heard there was anglers that contacted the boss of the guy who said that he could, and the boss said, no, you can't fish locks. So that's, because if I was that dude's boss, and as soon there's anglers, why are anglers calling me asking me, no, it's not legal, you can't, you know what I mean? Like so I think, I mean, if we're trying to fix everything,
next rule
is just you can't fish in locks. I mean, it's pretty simple. Okay, what else are we gonna? Oh, the other.
What else is everyone mad at?
Trey McKinney running the.
Oh yeah, God, we're gonna go through everything.
Well, Trey's getting that. Tell me what people are upset about. I mean,
okay, that's a good. Yeah, this is a good one. I have to stick up for a few people here, and one of them's they both got a hard time on this. G-Man and Trey.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing Trey did wrong was he didn't listen to the rules meeting. That's the only thing that got me. When he said I skirted over the rules meeting, I got my back up a little bit. I'm like, dude, I'm fighting for my family here. We've put a lot of money on the line. Read the rules meeting, like listen to them. That's a great lesson for a young kid. Like, he's getting a hard time, but he's 19 and he's going to learn some bloody hard lessons, and he's learning them fast and hard, which is unfortunate, but it will forge him into, I think, a better person. At 19, you need some hard love, like he's going to get this heat because he's dominating, he's young, he's doing well. This is going to be a part of it, and it's how he's going to deal with it. And what happened with, I seen, and even you were saying, like, I don't know about, a lot of people said, like, G-Man put that video out. What happened with G-Man and Trey happens every single tournament. There's zero problem. Someone always put someone in, he was speeding, the guy gets a penalty. So much so that the next day, the exact thing happened. An angler ran the bridge. A guy saw him. He put him in. That is not spoken about. And it just got washed away, which is what should have happened with Trey and G-Man. But it was put out on live, and G-Man got a lot of heat for it, and he had to defend himself. You cannot blame him for that. He's going to have his fan base that's going to give Trey a hard time, and Trey's going to have his fan base that is going to give
G a hard time.
G-Man hard time. But at the end of the day, Gerald did nothing wrong. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Trey needs to learn he had to learn the hard lesson of, one, don't skirt over the rules meeting, dude. Listen to them and make sure you read them. And two, running a bridge, like I've seen a lot of people say, that's a long time for him to get. If you are trying to beat someone to a spot, I'll give you a scenario. Gussie's trying to run to a spot on the St. John's River. He only has one really good shell bar. A guy beat him to it. That guy is in 22nd, whatever it was. Gussie didn't get there. He's in 94th. Gussie was in 90th, whatever. If that guy ran a no weight to beat Gussie there, he'll take an hour and a half penalty all day, 45 minutes all day. That's nothing. I'll take that to get there. That's a bad penalty when you're running and you're trying to beat someone to a spot. I had an angler do it to me in a no wake and just idle past me. And I'm like, dude, you can't do that. If you beat me to that 10-pounder, that is detrimental to my whole year. I beat you here. I've got a better number. You can't pass me in this no wake. That's not set for a 45-minute penalty. You should be, if you didn't read the rules and you intentionally or whatever ran a thing, I think you could be up to your catches DQ'd for that day. That's how big of an advantage it is to run a no wake. All of those no wakes through Harris Chain and all of those things. If you just ran the whole thing and beat everyone to the lock, I'll take 45 minutes to beat everyone. Like, that's huge. So if you run that, then there needs to be a ruling of intent. And so that's where I think you can have a thing like, well, did you accidentally run it and you didn't know and it was the middle of the day? Or were you trying to get back and you were running late and you ran the no wake? Or you were trying to beat someone to a spot? There's a defined area there. But a story that I just want to say that reminds me a little bit of Trey and what happened with G-Man is when I was like 18, I was so passionate about fishing. I wanted to win. And I didn't like a lot of the old guys. They gave me a lot of heat and they were like, he hasn't been fishing that long. The whole thing, I've fished way longer. And I used to think I spent more time on the water than you. You were like the old dudes, because I was spending 3-4 days during school. I was learning the new techniques and they used to give me crap for it. And so I had that same animosity towards some of the old guys, but I like the old guys are the ones that, one, forged the way for the sport, and two, had taught me half the techniques that I knew. And so I had a mentor, John Schofield, and he was like, he's a legend in Australia. And I was just so lucky that he took me under his wing. I listened to him and I just, whatever words he spoke, dude, it was like the guy, I was listening to him. I wanted to make him proud. And I was so competitive that when it was like, must have been about 17 or 18, I came 7th in this tournament and I had my head down. They called my name and I walked up and I got the check and I was pissed off. I don't like losing, but there's 50 of the best guys, dude. I come 7th and I was mad and I walked back and I showed a bad side of sportsmanship and myself, because I don't like losing. I still fight that now to every day. And he rang me that like 2 nights later, and dude, he made me cry. Like, he did not hold back. He just like, and this is the person that means the most to me. And he just told me what I was doing and that it was not good. And he gave me a lot of hard love. And I was like, I couldn't believe that I'd done that. But like, I never forget that to this day. And it helped me big time, because he could have just let it go. And I could have been a spoilt little brat and been mad all the time because I didn't win or I wasn't in the top 2. But like, that hard love from a guy that had been in the sport and seen it, he didn't want to say that to me, and he knew it was going to hurt me and hurt my feelings, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So like, Trey is getting some hard lessons, but you have to have respect for the guys that have forged the way to here. You have to know that the history of the sport and the things that the reason you get this opportunity here is because of guys that went through the trenches and got it to here. And you have to make sure that like you show that means a lot to me. I think it costs me a lot to gain the respect of a lot of these guys. And that part of it means everything. And I want that for Trey if he wins Angler of the Year, he wins a tournament, I want people to congratulate him and to look at him and being young like that, sometimes he just needs someone to tell him that is an important thing. It's not just about you winning everything and what you can get. You should want people to want you to win. And he's just young. I think he's a good kid at heart. And he came up to me and asked me, and he's like, I know you're friends with G-Man, but he's like, he caught me at a bad time. And I said, it's going to be uncomfortable, dude, but you're going to have to go up to G-Man and look him in the eyes and shake his hand. And that would fix a lot of stuff and say, I shouldn't have said that to you. And I'm sorry, dude, that would fix everything and it would be done. And at the same time, if it wasn't brought up on Bassmaster, I don't think that should ever get mentioned. It was mentioned that G-Man put Trey in. That put G-Man under a lot of pressure, and he had to read the comments and defend himself. And Trey had to too, because he had to like look at the comments from the other
Both
side.
of them. So you go to either of their posts, and they're both getting hammered.
They both got hammered, and like that shouldn't have happened. It should have. That's almost one that should have just been dealt with in the tournament, and it's done. Like because the same thing happened the next day, and nothing happened.
The biggest difference in it all is it became public on all of it. Because your analogy when you got the call, that's the big difference. Your call happened at a private time. The public of it, like I don't know why it got mentioned on Bass or who mentioned it. I mean, but I just knew it was out there, and why it wouldn't have been mentioned the next day, I don't understand that. And I also think that Trey's 19 years old.
Yeah.
I think that's what people forget. Like, I'm going to tell you, a 19-year-old version of me.
Yeah, we're going to do
has a much different response to Gerald. As much, and trust me, a 19-year-old version of me loved Gerald Swindle and loves Gerald Swindle to this day. But I just think that there's some of that's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like everybody's going to look at things differently. I don't know why. And I had actually heard, again, everything I say is officially unofficial. Nobody in the tournament department told me this. If I was better at my job, I would have asked them and got a real answer. But I'd heard the reason he got an hour and a half was because an hour was for the violation and 30 minutes was for not watching the video, the meeting video, or vice versa. Which is 40, a problem.
It was 45 each.
45 and 45.
Each. Yeah.
Okay. So, which is a problem that anglers, I mean, he's not the only one not watching meetings. I watched an angler last year that was the first boat to leave the dock. And I watched Lisa walk up to said angler. I'm not going to say his name, but it made me laugh a lot. And say, do you know what your special takeoff instructions are? And he was the first boat out on day one. And he's like, go that way. And she said, no, there was special instructions. I mean, it's not just to trick you.
That's right. I remember she did that. She said that I'm going to hold you accountable that you listen to this meeting. And maybe that's what they need to do.
And made said angler sit and watch the meeting before they went anywhere. And I thought it was, but I mean, here's what I'm going to tell to all you anglers. Start watching the damn meetings, because nobody wants to go back to real in-person meetings. I mean, we like it the way it is. So start watching the meetings. But I also think that some of the things that are coming out about Trey not watching a meeting, and dude, there's a reason that it's so amazing that he's 19 years old and doing what he's doing, because it's a lot to handle. Dude, you know what I mean? There's a lot of pieces that are coming at you, and
you got to get your fishing license. Is it this date? You got to get you've got 1,000,001 things.
Yeah,
and he's unfortunately learning some hard lessons, but he's also kicking butt too. So like it looks bad because it looks like everyone's bitter and stuff like that. And I'm sure there's plenty of that, but like at the same time, like if he's going to win and he's going to dominate, like it sucks that he's got that around him a little bit, and he's just going to have to like fight his way through that and explain it and try and make sure that he writes what's going on, like watching the meeting.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's reasons you need to do that. I mean, you're a professional. I mean, there's safety reasons. There's many reasons around it. And I think that's a bad situation for them both. Like, I just think that the way that it became a public thing, the way that Gerald felt like he had to make a video to defend himself, and I'm not judging either of them, but I just think that nobody wins. There's going to be people for the rest of Trey McKinney's career that will dislike him because of that video. That's the kind of social clout that Gerald Swindle has. I mean, there's no part of me to say Gerald made that video to make this happen, but that's just the reality. And there's gonna be people, and Trey's got a lot of vocal fans that no matter what G does, forever is always going to look at him under a certain light. Ultimately,
they're not those people you just can't listen to, and they're not in the arena. They're not competing. They don't know what it's like. But they're saying stuff online. But at the end of the day, that should have just been a matter that was dealt on the water. Trey got what he needed with running and that, and then it's all over. And then the day after, the exact same thing happened,
and nobody talked about it.
You don't even know who it was.
I'd never heard about it until you mentioned it. Until we were having the
exact same
hour
thing
and a half
happened
pre-show.
The very next day, they're identical. And the guy got 45 minutes, and the guy put him in just like what G-Man had to do. So that's just
wrong.
That's probably just an unfortunate, situation. But hey, I like that G-Man and people are holding people accountable. I want him to do that, and I think it's good for Trey to dude, that's not a wash under the rug. You're gonna, when you do something at 19, it's gonna suck and it's gonna hurt. But I think that you need to have those people that are gonna hold you accountable when you're just sort of trying to get stuff done. You're like, I got to sharpen up on that and be better, and that'll only help him. It's just, it sucks that it got a bit nasty, and it should never get to that. It's just fishing at the end of the day. We're all doing something that we love, and the rookies have a lot of passion. They love fishing, and we should look at a lot of the good things that the young anglers are coming up and enjoying it and loving it. But I feel bad for them right now because they are ringing, like Chris said, I think on his podcast, a rookie rang him and said, "Is it always like this?" He's like, "Nah, this is kind of the worst that it's been."
But I would say this. I think if you do what Trey McKinney's doing, as far as competition was, dude, you don't think Kevin Van Dam, you don't think people disliked, you know what I mean? That's, and I think that that's also part of, whether it's rightfully or wrongfully so, that's part of the competitive environment. There's going to be was everyone super welcoming to you?
Yeah.
Or did they make you earn your spot? Again, right or wrong,
I said that to Trey when he asked me, what did he do with G-Man? And I said, if you want to write the ship with him, you're going to have to go and shake his hand. So it didn't you caught me at a bad time, whatever you're going to say, but it's not going to be comfortable. But that's what guys like G, they're not going to take a phone call. They're not going to listen to it. You're going to have to come up and shake his hand and be uncomfortable face to face like a man. That's what we need to teach people. That's what it takes to do things in real life, look someone in the eye and say, I was wrong, I shouldn't have done that, or vice versa, whatever it is. But there's,
but Trey did call G, right?
Yeah, he called him, I think, and just left a message. But and I knew that, and he said that, and I said, that ain't gonna cut it. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, you're gonna have to, it's gonna be uncomfortable, you're gonna have to go and shake his hand if you want to ride it. And we do teach that a little bit in this day and age. That's the easier route to go or whatever. But I think the old school guys are going to teach you, no, you shake my hand, look me in the eye, and let's have a conversation. That's what Gerald did to him, to say hey dude, you ran that bridge. So you sort of got to, that's all taught things. And some people have people that teach them and some people don't. And if you don't, then you learn the lesson the hard way, which is dealing with G-Man.
Well, I'm going to have them both on next week's podcast. We'll have a sit down between the both of them, and maybe we can fix it.
G-Man has just such a good heart, and he's passionate. And what's cool about, and both of them do, and dude, what I keep thinking about is everyone's super passionate about this sport. That's why there's so much they're just we love it. Yeah, it's the good part. We're we're getting our butts whooped by the young guys on forward facing sonar, I'm like, it's freaking don't like the old guys stop. I said to all of them, I said, you guys kicked my teeth in, dude. I was on the ground begging for mercy, and you were like, no, just stomp me out. Like in 2015, 16, I'm like, where's that fight? I wish you like, where is that now? Like, you guys crush me, and I had to go like, I'm gonna quit and go home, or I'm gonna choose to dig deep, learn more, get better, spend more time in the water, do what I have to do to compete, and that's how I got here. And the older guys are sort of getting that back right now, and it's time for them to like bite down on the mouthpiece and say, all right, let's go. We can play at this game too. We know everything about bass fishing, plus we can do that, or whatever it is, or you get it banned and we just go back to bass fishing again.
Well, I mean, and I don't think it's as simple as just forward facing sonar. I mean, that's just my opinion. But if it was, why is Kyoya in 50th for Angler of the Year? If it was, why is Joey Cifuentes in?
Well, everyone caught up. That's what happened.
Yeah,
like they had it to themselves for a little bit, and it was real fun for a lot of guys for quite a few years. And then so many people caught up that you can't have 30 winners. Like there's 40 guys that are like forward facing sonar freaks. But like when you get that'll be the level playing field for it. If it doesn't get banned and it keeps going, it'll just get to where like everyone will sort of almost cannibalize each other with it, and it'll go back to how like old school fishing was, and the other fishing will get better, and that'll get tougher because so many people will do it.
Or because it's technology, it seems different. But if you look at the history of the sport, when Aaron Martins was the only one throwing a drop shot, he whooped on people, and then they all kind of caught up. You know what I mean? Like it's what's happened when the northern guys were the only ones who really focused on smallmouth bass. They had such a huge advantage, and now that's kind of caught up. Which brings up our last. So what was our watch the meetings? That's how we fixed that one.
Yeah, watch the meetings and all get along.
Yeah, or else G's coming at you, and it'll be uncomfortable. The big one, forward facing sonar. It's like you said at the beginning, it is everybody's right. And I think that no matter what the call is, somebody's going to be pissed no matter what they do. And I swear to you, as somebody who works with bass, and not that I'm part of that committee or anything, but the vibe that I get is there's part of me that if a genie in a bottle came out and said, guess what? It's next year, it's illegal in tournaments, I'm not shocked. There's another part of me that's like, next year, it's limited to the number of units you can put on and that sort of stuff. Not shocked. Kind of shocked if it's just status quo, if it's and again, these are just my opinions. And not shocked at all if it's limited to like certain amount of events or a certain amount of time you can use it.
50. So what do you want to see in your heart? What would you want to see?
I don't have, dude, I really don't, like, because you know what I mean? Like, I fell in love with bass fishing before forward facing sonar. So the safe answer is make it illegal. And I love watching them eat a frog. I love all that. Like, all of us, like, and that's the truth. Even the rookies, they fell in love with the sport of bass fishing before they were ever looking at them on a graph. Like, it's not a graph that made them. So that's the safe answer. Make it illegal. It does make the sport a little more boring at times, depending on how you look at it. But I've also had people say, I love it. Like they're obsessed with watching it. They do. There is people that like it. And they're the people we hear from the least because they're not being threatened right now. The people that feel threatened are like, I don't want this. So you hear they're obviously the vocal. And I think if tomorrow, if Bass said it's gone, there'd be a whole new group that would get real vocal. And that's the ones that are for it. How I honestly think it all goes to, I mean, what I want, I don't know. I don't know. I want bass fishing to be what it's always been, what I love. But I also love what we're learning from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But is it needed? I don't know. I mean, I think where it ends up next year, my honest opinion is it'll be limited. Whether that is time, whether that is tournaments, whether that is
transducers.
I think that goes
like
without
that.
saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you
Get
would
it
think.
back.
I mean, it's
Get it back
people's
normal.
people's boats have turned into
Yeah.
science projects. I mean,
Yeah.
But I was kind of I love the whole I hated it when I first heard it, but the European Power Hour approach, I hate that whole thought.
Yeah.
But then there's part of me that, like, as a fishing fan, I want to see Kyoya do other things. I want to see people be challenged, and like, so there was, that whole side of it where if, like, from 7 to 1, it's traditional fishing, and then at 1 o'clock at the same time for everybody, like, it's not a choice thing. It's like at 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, you can do whatever you want. And I like that from a TV show element of it, from a competitive side. I like that feeling of, like, all of a sudden, now it's like a reset. Like, all day I've watched Jason Christie hammer him traditionally, and I'm a huge Christie fan. And now I get to see if Kyoya can catch him, and because we know he can do damage in 45. You take Toledo Bend as an example.
Yeah.
He could do it quick. Well, does he have enough time? So there's part of me that likes that, but almost everybody I bring that up to says they hate it. So that's not going to happen by the sounds of things. I think the most likely is it'll probably get limited to the number. I think there'll be events with and events without. As a happy medium to.
Yeah.
But
to start.
I mean, there's part of me that I think getting rid of it makes it. I mean, we all love that. It's truth. We all love that. But do you love it as much when you're the only ones on the lakes not using it?
Yeah, that'd be weird.
In 5 years from now, when we have 5 different classes of this year's rookies that have come into the Elite Series, does it seem strange? Like, again, and there's going to be people that'll make comments on this that will make their feelings be fact, and that's the problem. There's no facts. It's just feelings, like, where people are like, it has to be this way because this. I mean, Randy Blockett will tell you this is what is happening, but he doesn't know that's his opinion. He never says I think. He just says I'm seeing. And it's his thoughts. And that's not me slamming him, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I think none of us really know. Like, it's a weird, very weird time in history. And the scary thing is the future, because if you don't like what it is now, I mean, there's people that say that one day it'll be AI and there'll be, and this is happening in saltwater.
Tell you everything.
In saltwater, you can put a target on a fish and follow said fish. Your boat follows it.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, that to me is not. So I don't know. So where are you with it? I mean, I have just given every possible option I can think of. I have no answer for this.
You skirted all of it.
Other than the committee is working on it.
Yeah. No, I know it's people definitely working on something. I just think you got to take everyone's personal feelings out of it. You got to take all the competitiveness out of it. You know, when the A-Rig came out, dude, I realized how dominant it was. And I'm like, man, I got to get on this. So I started throwing it, and I got really good with it, and it was deadly. And I knew I'm better at everyone I know with this thing. I throw it where people don't throw it. And I dominated. Like, I had some of my best finishes, and I made the elites with the A-Rig. And then they said, dude, I was like, I'm going to crush them. We're on Gunnersville. We're on this. Like, I had all of these tricks up my sleeve, and they said, they just out of nowhere, it's banned. And I'm like, I just put 3 years of time into this thing. I know it better than anyone. And you just pulled it out from underneath me. And I've got to go and, like, just do all of this stuff again and figure it all out. And I had to deal with that. So, like, I've put this amount of years into it and this and that. That's all. That doesn't matter. The number one thing is the future of the sport, the fishery. Is it good for the bass? Is it good for our sport? That's got to be at the forefront of all of it. And I don't know how I do think you can get to that point, but like I'm at that age where I'm in between. I have fought for technology my whole life.
Yeah.
I love it. I love my Minn Kota. I love Spotlock. I have loved 360 mapping, 2D, all of it. I embrace it every single time. And I've had builders say, "Oh, look at all those screens on you," and I've argued with them and said, "Do you use a hammer to know, or do you use a nail gun? Like, go back to using a hammer." That's how I used to argue with it. And I fished Toledo Bend, and I still was on the fence of forward facing, but I fished Toledo Bend and I knew they were going to be off the bank, and I went all in with it. And I stared at it for 3 full days of practice, and I stared at it for 3 full days of the tournament, and I made the cut. I had my best finish this year still, and I caught 7-pounders and I hooked giants. And I just got back to the camper and I was sitting there, and Kay was like, "What's wrong with you? Why aren't you happy?" And I'm like, "I feel real weird right now." And I've never felt like that before in my life. I just had come off a great finish. Dude, making a check for me is like winning. I love it. I just get so fired up because it feels like my work paid back. It's so many cool things to it because I know how hard it is to do it. And something wasn't right. And that's when I was like, I don't know about this anymore. And because it was different. And I just think that's where it got me, where I knew like something has to change. And I don't know what that is, but like just the heritage of the sport, seeing wildlife, nature, fish busting, birds on the water, all the things that what get kids into fishing, that the things that got us all passionate about, I'm worried that we're going to lose them a little bit. And if that's even a part of the case, then I think we have to look at it like super serious.
Yeah. I mean, feelings are important. I mean, dude, the feeling is what got you in a plane. The feeling is what made you not give up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that feeling wasn't coming from like getting my butt whooped. It was coming from just fishing and catching them and having success.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
I don't know. I don't know what the answer. Like, I think it's a hard, like I said, nobody's going to be happy. I don't know what their decision's going to be. But I will say that I'm happy they didn't rush to make a decision because, I think you have to have some information. I think we have to have some information. Like, it's easy to be like, well, all the lakes are going to be outfished. Well, find me a biologist that tells me that. And maybe there is out there already saying it. But I mean, there has to be some real information put into it to make the decision.
This is something that what do you think about this? And you might have spoke about this, but like, it feels like nothing's special anymore. Like, everyone got a century belt. Everyone's catching 10-pounders. Everyone's catching giants like continuously. And it's like, I again feel for the people that did it, but I'm like, it's hard to be special anymore. What is special? What to you is special in fishing? Because it feels like everyone's doing it and everyone's catching them. And it's like hard to like stand out at all for anything. Like, you catch 10-pounder and they're like, yeah, did you catch 10 of them? Like, like I didn't. I caught one. It was a fish of a lifetime. And you're like, yeah, but this guy caught 800 last month. And you're like, jeez. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how it feels from a feeling point of view. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I feel bad because guys caught 100 pounds, but also 30 of them would have done it if they let them at fork. I'm like, that has to be looked at too. That is a sign of it where I'm like, are we catching every single fish in the lake now? Like, what is left up to the imagination?
I feel like that. I mean, I feel like that's generally in everything. I mean, I look at
Yeah.
my other line of work. I mean, I produce a TV show. I mean, the amount of time I spend shooting underwater footage, nothing
It just
special
doesn't,
anymore. Like it
yeah.
just, I mean,
They just
something
see
gets
it and
millions of views and it's cool, but it's like, feed me another one. And in the past, I use those underwater clips as a prime example. I'm like, I spend hours and I've got this incredible shot of a fish coming up and eating a jerk bait and its mouth open. When I was a kid, dude, that was a freaking commercial. Like
yeah.
that was all you would
Yeah.
see. You would see that and you'd see it, and then there would be some cool words or some commentary with it, the new whatever bait, go get it. And I would watch that for years, and that would never get old. But now we live in a world where people just hyper
Yeah.
watch. You know what I mean? So I feel like
Yeah.
that. I feel like that. I mean, even look at it, Bass Live, prime example. As much as I love Bass Live, I love that it tells the story. There's a little bit of the specialness missing. Like when it used to be just one show that was on and I had to work so hard to get it. The fact that I can get live bass fishing so much makes it less special.
Yeah.
I,
That's
I,
why,
I don't,
like,
I don't,
the
I'm good with it either way, whatever way it
yeah,
goes. Like I
Bass has a hard job, and this is what they're good at. And I know they can do this and they can bring this back. And I've spoke to you about this. We have to get back to telling the story. We have to get back to telling the story of the angler. And I know for a fact that my tournament win on Team Keller was the last time that it happened. I got so lucky. But Bassmaster knows how to create a star. They know how to tell the story. That's why they are better far beyond MLF and every other person that's tried to come in, is because they know how to tell a story. They know how to create a star. And that's what they did for a bunch of us in 2019 when the split happened. Lee Livesey was a star overnight, dude. They just knew when they knew how to get his personality out and get his story. And as much as it is about the fishing, people need to relate to someone. And the way they told my story and brought it out, dude, everyone just still remembers 10 Killer. They still can watch that show, and Tommy and Mark and you talking about it over and telling all the things that had happened and showing the footage. That made me, that made my career, that made everything. And a lot of us got that. Brandon got that. Van Dam, like when they won, they capitalized for their entire life. We're like, we've lost that a little bit. One, a little bit because of forward facing, because that's got the main star. And two, I just feel like Bass needs to say, we got to get back to telling the story again. Joey Sventes, he won two in the same year, I think he didn't he? And like,
yeah.
I just don't know if he got out of that what he should, how special that was, and the story, and who is this guy, and where did he come from, and how did he do that? It's like you can watch the footage of him catching them smallmouth and winning, but like that Bassmaster show, dude, is everything. That's what got me here. I just watching Fred catch the fish at Murray on the Frog, Skeet fishing the Red River. That footage and the overspeak of it, and the way the passionate with Zona and Tommy and the people that spoke about it, and you at the weigh-in, or when you add it all up, it's all of that. They used to tell the story perfectly, and you just got like, that's my guy. That's how I fish. That's how I think. And that's how you got fans for life. And that's how you got people watching, where we've sort of just gotten a little bit. Live has given us better fishing footage, but we've lost the story.
I get
You
that.
think?
No, I think, and what I'm thinking about is, I think about my son too, because he watches a lot of other mainstream sports, basketball, football,
Yeah.
soccer, and I just watch how they watch them. Like the younger generation doesn't even watch a full game very rarely. You know what I mean? They watch the game in 30 minutes. They watch the highlights. And that's kind of it is weird. It is definitely a different time. I still think Bass tells the story. I just think it's hard the story isn't as micro. You know what I mean? Like before, you saw every bit of that 2-hour show or that 1-hour show. Now your story gets told. They still do packages on guys and tell their story, but you might not be watching that hour when it plays, but I mean, I think telling the story, I mean, that's the whole reason Bass is what it is. I mean, that was Gary McInnes's greatest gift to the sport, in my opinion. Greatest gift. It's the reason bass, when Jerry was doing the FLW tournaments, you go back and look at them, and they were incredible then. And then then he started the bass thing, and was the tip. I mean, I think Jerry McInnes was a huge part of that tipping factor. But Jerry's always said one thing: tell the story, whatever the story is, tell it. And that's where I get all the time when you hear me say in meetings, be who you are, be real. Like, you know, that's the whole reason this show exists, so that you can see that anglers are more than just the dude setting the hook, you know, that
the jersey on the back, like looking at the back of your jersey, there's a story, there's a person, there's a human, there's someone that fought tooth and nail to get there. And has a dream and is just a regular dude that had a job, that, you know, that all of those things. I think we just lost that just a touch, but I know that we can get it back. Like, and that's what separates Bassmaster from absolutely everyone. And if they go more all in on that, I think you'll see a huge difference with like live and stuff as well. Just like having that cut show is so much for the angler, and UFC does the best job of it, dude. Like, if you watch a fight and you don't know who it is, you don't really care. But when they tell the story leading up to it, you're like, I hope this guy wins, or like, that's my guy. Like, you'll pull for him, and it'll make you buy the pay-per-view and make you stay up until 1 a.m. watching it, because you're invested in that guy,
connected to them.
Yeah. And so we have to do a lot of it ourselves now with social media, but there's no more power than Bassmaster telling your story from their perspective. You, Zona, Tommy, like all those guys, and Bass's power with it. They tell the best story, and it's more powerful when it comes from that too.
We still didn't figure out forward-facing sonar, though.
Okay.
So what's the rule?
Game.
What story are we going to tell about forward-facing sonar?
Let's do 50-50 next year, so we can see how. Like, you can't do the power hour; it gets too sketchy. But like,
why? You don't think, dude? I can turn my lights on in Canada when I'm in America. You don't think there's a way to control people's?
They could do it, but I could just see it turning into like he was looking down at his thing, like, you know what I mean?
It's always good, but dude, that's the world you live in for the rest of your life. Just so you know, no matter what you do. I mean,
people are gonna say something.
Yeah, but okay, so power hour's gone because you're not the only one that shut it down. So it's fine.
Maybe we start with 50-50, so we see how some do with none at all and half with it. And I think that's a good happy medium straight off the bat. I think that would keep a lot of people happy, and like the electronics companies get to showcase their stuff still, and the guys that love it still get their deal. The guys that don't, that might, and then make a decision after that. I think that's a good call.
I think that's the happy medium where it keeps people somewhat happy no matter what end they're on. I mean, there's part of me that for the rookies, I think we should make it illegal, because
just to get,
I've watched them, and I don't think that they're just that. I mean, is there a few that would struggle? Probably. I mean, but when you hear comments about, and it's just gross how you hear it about everyone. Well, without electronics, they're nothing. They'd be no. I mean,
you can catch them in a you can see their mechanics, dude. That's how you can tell. The way they cast, the way they position their boat, like, they're good. That's the problem, is they're really, really good. And they're really good with that. And that thing is dominating. It's powerful. And so, like, they've got it all together. They're casting, their boat position, the way they think, it's all good. And, you know, the other thing is what we don't talk about is Bassmaster and the anglers created them by having the 9. We got the 9, like, before you got the guy that fished Oklahoma 3 lakes, and now he's on the St. Lawrence River and he's going to get his butt whooped. We got 9 of the most versatile, proven hammers that there is, and now we're complaining. No, we created them. That's how you get. We asked for it, and you're getting it. You're getting the best of the best. They just spent a full year on the road competing against 250 guys in the opens. Like, they're good.
Well, and you also created them long before that decision was made. Like,
Yeah,
I think the thing that nobody takes into account, and again, I go back to my kids and I watch how they learn now. It's so different. Like, dude, how did you learn what a shad spawn is? How
Yeah.
did you learn about a lot of the things they learn like this? Like, literally, I mean, you talk to Tyler Williams, what do you do? Well, I fish every day. What do you do with the days that you're not fishing? I lay in my trailer and I Google things. Like, so you just think of like, for us not to think that's going to affect things. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the last 2 years that social media has been a big thing. Like, I mean, YouTube's been around 16, 17 years now. So let's say for the last 10 years, whether it be a tournament pro, whether it be the Googans, whether it be whatever, they've continued to flood the world with all this. So you think in the past, okay, I'm from wherever, Canada, Australia, Maine, and I want to learn about a shad spawn. It's so hard to learn. Like, you can read about it, you find the information, you read about it, but you still can't physically see it.
No.
I can go on here, and by the end of an hour from now, without knowing anything about it, I can be an expert on shad spawn. I can tell you exactly how they look like in the water, from above the water, from below the water. I can tell you exactly the kind of lures that you should use in this situation, the timing of it, and everything, just by Googling it. And I don't even have to type it in. I could just be like, tell me about the shad spawn. And so I think that what we're seeing is a lot of that coming together, and it's a lot of people's fault. But I mean, the positive of all of it is there's more kids fishing than there ever has been. And I don't think forward-facing sonar has anything to do with that. I think I've heard stories from people where they're like, my kids are more engaged with it because it gives them something. But people were fishing. The growth in competitive fishing didn't start with forward-facing sonar. And honestly, the honest truth that nobody will ever say, and they have not said this to me, but I honestly believe if I was a genie and I landed on Chase Anderson's desk and said, hey, I can make forward-facing sonar disappear from Earth, like it's not even a thing.
Yeah.
You don't think he'd say, where do I sign up? Like, Bass never, the all too convenient narrative that goes online where, oh, Bass is getting paid big bucks and that's why they're doing this. And they never brought the units. The anglers brought the units. Bass is just being forced to make a decision, but that's what they're supposed to be good at.
Yeah.
And that's what they've proved to be good at over the years. And I think that decision will happen. But I think till then, everybody knows the rules you're fishing under.
It's going to make for a cool story when someone does like crack them and they're not using it too. And to see when it does start to wane and then guys catch them other ways. Like I said to you, like, it's just people think that this is how it's going to be forever. And it's never the case. Like, they thought the A-rig was going to do that. It didn't do that. But it is a really, really powerful tool, and it's super fun. It's fun to use and it's incredible. And it's like, we learn so much of it, and I love using it. It's unbelievable. Like, I've learned more about bass, in the last couple of years using it than I'd ever would, but it's just whether we just got to figure out whether it's right for the sport or not. So, right now, I think we're good to decide on 50-50.
Okay, so that's our decision.
Keeps us clean.
50-50. You see what happens? You've been in charge of this company for 1 hour and you're already
on the fence.
I mean, because and there's that narrative out there that, like, well, that's why the Alabama rig got made illegal, because there was no money behind it. No, it got made illegal because there was a lot of pressure from the industry. The industry made a clear-cut decision on it. The industry hasn't made a clear-cut decision. The industry is leaving that in the tournament organization's hands. And the truth is, most likely, regardless of what happens in tournaments, you're going to be fishing against it for the rest of your career, because other people are going to be using it that are pleasure fishing, that are fishing other circuits. So there's not this bunch, I've yet to hear from any of the electronics companies, you got to do this, you got to promote this. This is what we want, or I mean, there's a case to be made that it's actually hurt Bass financially in some ways, because now they don't have to advertise as much.
The consumer is telling the story. The consumer is buying the stuff. Like, that's what's driving it. People are buying it. They're
Yeah.
liking to use it. They're catching fish. It's helping them catch big and better fish. Like that's what's driving it.
That's the weird part, because routinely when people are like, it needs to be out of tournaments, it needs to be gone. And then I'll be like, well, do you have it? And they're like, oh yeah, I love it. I am
Yeah.
done it. I'm like, wait a second. How's that?
Yeah.
Right or wrong? There will be a decision made. It may not be any of the decisions we've made here today, but one of the best decisions that you made was the reason that we came together to do this show. And I hate to squeeze us for time, but literally this show is going to go to air in a couple hours. So we got to stop.
We got to cut it. To
My poor
post
wife cuts all this stuff together. I mean, I'm just like, it's done. And now it's
walk away.
her mess to deal with. Talk to me about the initiative that you've started that I think is great.
So, fear my heart is my mantra and something that I've sort of lived by and come up with that since 2012, 13, whenever it was. And I've used it to not only motivate me and look at that and know that like I can do anything with heart. It just resonates with so many people, and it's the thing that I want to get behind the most over everything. I want Fear My Heart to help people, change people's lives, show people that you can do it even though that you have less experience, less talent. Like I am passionate about it. It's my one thing that I just absolutely love. And I've always, I just don't know where it's going to go. I don't know I don't really know what it's about, or we just keep doing things that are positive. And we got some work done on our shop here, and we opened up one of the bays and got a better living area here. And we just, like, the universe, God or whatever, puts people in front of you for certain reasons. And somehow we got put in front of a guy. His name's Stacey Harvey. He's got a company called Warrior Precast, and we would have never been able to get this done. But he's a passionate fisherman, and he liked supporting us, and he wanted to get it done, and he helped us make this happen. And we never would have been able to do it without him. And he just was in the shop, and he got talking about all sorts of things. And he said, it's just disappointing to see like everyone arguing with the fishing industry. He's like, I think everyone's tired of it. And we just got talking about that. And I said, there's so many positive things going on all the time. And he said, I've tried to help. I think it was like FLW or whatever. He's like, I wanted to do incentive to show someone that like they would jump up from like way back up into it and show that like the guys that like fought their ways, like that'd be good for Fear My Heart. He's like, if you can come up with an idea, he's like, I'd like to support Fear My Heart, support you. And he's like, sort of figure it out. And that's eventually what we're going to do, but leave it up to G-Man. He's always like, G-Man's got such a good mind when it comes to things like that. And I just asked him, I said, man, we got a cool opportunity with this. And he's like, G-Man just said, it shouldn't be about the competition. It should be about the person that shows the most heart. And I'm like, oh, that's good. And we ran with that. And it's just, we're giving $1,000 away to an Elite Series angler that does something positive through an Elite Series week, whether he shows heart, grit, determination, integrity, sportsmanship. And the cool thing is it's easy because it happens week in and week out all the time. And we never see it. Guys that you never even work with will help you on the water, tow you in, ask how you're doing, get your truck out of the water, you need a hand, whatever it is. It's unbelievable. It's such an awesome community. The whole campground is helping each other. Like there's a positive vibe around everyone. We all love fishing for the same reasons. We all have the same passion and we want the same things. And so it's just cool. Like I think to be able to highlight that. And so we put it out there and it was awesome. Like I had people coming up to me at the weigh-in and saying, hey, this guy did this. And had people nominating Elite Series guys the whole time. And it was stories that I was like, man, that would have never got told or never got seen. And it's people that are doing stuff out of the goodness of their heart with that aren't at the forefront, not putting it on social media. And Caleb Summerall, he ended up winning it. And Mike Huff had 21 pounds going into day 2, was trying to get onto the spot that Caleb was on. Caleb asked him, what did he have? He only had 3 fish. And he said, hey, come in and catch them. And Caleb doesn't work with Mike Huff, doesn't really know Mike well. He's just another competitor on the water. They're both competing against each other. And he's willing to say, come in and get your fish and get a check and get out. And that shows true sportsmanship, true heart. And it was cool to be able to give it to Caleb Summerall for the first one. And like I said at the start, the response I got from that post that I posted up was the first time ever where I was like, people are ready to hear something positive.
Yeah.
People are sick of the drama. They're more ready for this than ever. And I'm like, this is cool. And I think more people are going to do it. You know, even Bill Lowen, I saw like he's given out Bass
Memberships.
You know, Bass memberships to the kids and stuff. Like, how awesome is that? Like, that should be highlighted at the forefront of everything. And it sort of just gets swept away a lot of the time. So I think it's going to turn into something pretty big. We're going to do it for the rest of the season. And huge thanks to Stacey for supporting us and getting behind Fear My Heart. And we're just going to keep trying to do positive things as much as, you know, doom and gloom is at the forefront all the time. I think everyone, and in real life, when you actually get around, cool things are happening all the time. And humans are being incredible and doing cool things and being welcoming and cooking for everyone and inviting you over, and just everyone's getting along in real life, but it's not, that doesn't sell. And so we want to highlight the things that, you know, are tough to get the clicks and tough to get the likes and tough to get any traction with. But like, I feel like that's right. That's what I've always wanted to do. And it's cool that we sort of got a little glimpse into something that is positive.
Yeah. And it's something that I think that, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how people respond to it, because you know what? It's like to say, oh, people are ready for something positive. Yeah, I think they are, but I still think that
yeah,
if I title this "Everything That's Wrong with the Fishing Industry," it'll get a lot more.
Carl hates bass fishing. Carl hates.
Why Carl's quitting bass fishing? It's just and as you said at the beginning of the show, I think it's important that people tell the truth. I think we've always tried to tell the truth in this show. What I have a problem with is people that chase nothing but negative. Like I mean, if the only way you can get traffic is by breaking somebody else down, then I hope you enjoy the traffic, because it's never going to be. But I think what you're doing is great. I think it's something that it's funny because I think when you were on your hiatus from Bass for a little while, when you were trying to requalify to get back here, fishing FLW, I started something similar, but it had no money to it, so it wasn't near as good. But I said I bought a belt, a championship belt, and that's when we had meetings, and I would be like, every week I'm going to pick somebody new that gets this belt, and we're going to turn it into a media thing. And I think Derek Hodno won the first one because he got DQ'd from a tournament or something because he pre-fished. He got his days mixed up and he pre-fished. So then, but he stayed around the tournament and ran a media boat and did stuff, so he got it. And then Cruz, who's one of the best people on earth, won the next one, but he didn't return the belt for like 5 weeks. So that's what happened to that.
He kept it. He said, "No one else needs this." He forgot
it. I'm sure it was on purpose, but that was the way it died. But hey, cash, they do not have to return. So it will work. It's a great thing. And I'll do everything I can to promote that stuff, because I don't think that stuff doesn't get promoted. I just think it doesn't get. I mean, Bill Lowen's thing's a prime example.
Yeah. No one knows
he
about it.
He takes extra time in the stage and everything. But the majority of people, you know, if he were to go up there and say, let me give you 5 minutes of why I think forward-facing sonar is the devil. Everybody, people be texting their friends, tune in.
Yeah.
But when he says, I'm going to highlight a kid and he's going to become a member, just the world we live in. So I guess here's the last rule change we need to have. Start liking the good stuff in the world.
Yeah. Start watching the right stuff. Yeah.
And dude, on this show, I've made a big push for that. I think from the start, but I really made a push in the last month or so, and I feel like it's hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 months. It's hurt the viewership of this show in times because there's a lot of people who just give me that TMZ. I'm not interested in.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be listening to this show anymore, so it doesn't matter. They're checked out.
It's just you and me right now.
Really, it is. It is. I hope Rue, the Bass Dog, tunes in because that's all we got.
No, I think everything gets crazy before it gets better, and we're at sort of like a bit of a point where, you know, I just think those words, integrity, you know, humility, helping people, positivity, just sportsmanship, they're gonna come back. They have gone away for a little while, and it's not what you get, but it's gonna be back to where they stand out when someone does something, and it already is doing that. And so I'm excited about the future. We've got to be positive. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to. Dude, I look up to people. That's how I am who I am, is because I see people and be like, that's who I want to be like. So someone's got to be like how you want this next generation to come up. And I hope that the guys keep doing what they're doing with like the older generation that like want the sustainability and the future of the sport and looking after our lakes and the bass. And I'm trying to do cleanups because I just see it as a huge problem. Like people are looking at it like it's nothing.
Gross.
I'm like, are you seeing what we're doing to our lakes? This is unbelievable. And it's taught. It's not, it's learned. Seeing that and seeing that it's not a problem. And I think we'll can't change the world, but like we can just keep doing positive things and hope that that we can make an effect, whether it's one person or a million. You know, I think if you can affect one person, I get messages all the time saying, dude, I read Fear My Heart, read the story, and I want to post more about the messages that we get like that, that like it resonated with them and it got them out of bed and it got them fighting. And I go through the same things, dude. And the one thing that I just keep doing is like get up when I just don't feel like getting up. It sucks. And you're down and out, and it's like feels like the world's ending, and that's the very time that you need to get up. It's easy to get up when life's good, so easy, everything's rosy. But when it sucks and you're down and out, that's the very time that you need to go, now's my time to stand up and actually fight, because that's the thing that's going to make the difference.
Great words. Totally agree. One of those guys who we all looked up to that made this message possible is Bob Cobb, and we've reached the time of the show where you need to look at that camera and say, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Bob Cobb, take it away, mate.
We out.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?